Guys, what's going on? Live and direct. I got my man Peter from the Strength Classroom. Extremely underrated YouTube channel. You should subscribe to now. Literally pause the video, subscribe to his channel before you even start this talk, and you're gonna be amazed by the content he's been putting out in the past, along with the content he has up to date. So really honored to have the channel. Big underdog in the YouTube fitness world. Highly recommend, and welcome aboard, my man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So we got tons of questions. Everything's gonna be timestamped, and we're just gonna have fun, man. So let's start by what got you into fitness, and what made you want to start a channel.
Okay, first question. It was just some people in grade 12. They just went to the local community center, and I just went with them one day, and I just thought it was a lot of fun. And that's like kind of how I got into like just lifting weights in general, or exercising, let's put it. And then I went to university the next year, and I stumbled across, it's actually been taken down, which kind of sucks, but I stumbled across a forum. It was called Iron Addicts, and it had nothing to do with CT Fletcher at all. It was just called Iron Addicts, and they were all just doing stuff that I had never seen before. Because up until then, I was doing like the typical like bodybuilding stuff, like chest and triceps, like that type of split. And they introduced me to squats, deadlifts, lifting in the 5 rep range, which was like super foreign to me. Before then, everything was sets of 10 or more.
What year was it? What year was it?
Yeah, I want to say 2009. It was late 2009. And then I had made a log, and then there were other people. And the craziest part to me is someone messaged me and says, "Hey, that looks like my university's gym." And then he DM'd me that he was also at York University. And then I found like 3 or 4 people that were from the forum that were roughly my age that were also lifting at university. So then we all had our little powerlifting group that we had there just for fun. And then I started going into other things. Like then I came across Wendler's 531, and I like that. And then I came across conjugate method, which I still kind of do to this day. So that's basically how it started. It was just coming across that online forum, because people are spoiled now with the amount, I should say, not the quality, of fitness information that's on the internet. Back then, there was like next to nothing. You would come across the same things like Muscle and Strength or bodybuilding.com, and all the advice or programs or routines, they all looked kind of the same. They sounded the same, which is not bad, but it was all like one note. So compared to now, where practically everyone's got some sort of page with fitness and they're all doing different types of things. But when I came across that forum, it just stuck out to me. And that kind of is like the basis of how I've trained now, even though it's changed a lot. But that was essentially my start, so to speak. And then your second question was, what made me start a channel? Honestly, I don't even remember. I remember I would just edit things for fun, for like university projects or whatever. I just found that aspect was enjoyable. And then I think it was 2015 or 2016, I just put up like, because I used to record myself and just put up clips. Like, you have training clips, you just, nothing fancy, nothing edited, where I would just put up like, let's say a deadlift PR or wherever. And right. Someone sent me back this little video that they made. They edited my video and like a bunch of my videos into like kind of like a compilation. And someone said, you should talk about what you're doing in the gym. And I kind of thought to myself, like, who the heck would want to see that? Because at the time, it was all like the Pete Rubishes and Dan Green and Mark Bell, like that, like OG, like powerlifting YouTube community. So I was like, oh, I'm nowhere as strong as those dudes. Who the hell would want to watch me? And then one day I just decided, I put up these, I'm like, everyone makes these really long videos on YouTube, like those channels. It was always 15 minutes plus. I'm like, why don't I do short videos? Which is ironic now because I hate short form videos, but it is what it is. So I'm like, let me make 2-3 minute videos, short, where it's like 1 to 2 things that are easily digestible. And it started rolling. And then one day when I made my very first neck video, which I look back on, it's like the worst video in the world, but everyone has that thing where you look back on your old content and you're like, oh, this is brutal. I can't believe I thought this was good. And I feel like it was like for 2-3 weeks, every time I looked at my analytics, I would put out no new videos, but I would get like 7, 8, 10 subscribers a day, and I just didn't know where they were coming from. And then I finally found out how to check my analytics, and it was all from this neck video because someone posted it on Reddit, and it just exploded from there. So that was my very first video. I think even now people don't really watch it. It's got like lost in the shuffle, but from in the first year it got, I don't know, like 110,000 views or something like that, which back then just freaking completely blew my mind because the rest of my videos had like, I don't know, 200 if I was lucky. Like that was considered a good video. So for something to go so high was just blew my mind back then. So once I got that video, I kept making more. Then I stopped for a little bit, and then in early 2020, I guess because everyone was home and gyms were closed, I noticed the same thing was happening. All these subscribers were coming in. I'm like, why are people subscribing? I'm not making anything new. But a belt squat video, which is now my #1 video, Matt Wenning had just posted up a video about his version of the belt squat. So I guess the term belt squat was very like highly searched on YouTube. And 2 days later, I'm getting like 25, 50 subscribers a day. And that made me start making videos again. And then that brings me to today, essentially.
Got you. So how would you describe your channel? Because from what I personally see, I really like it, and that's why we were having this talk right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have a lot of similarities, not just like looks wise, but also like as far as our channels are concerned. Like I consider my channel an underdog channel.
Yeah, for sure.
Mainstream by any means, which is perfectly fine. But like, for example, when both of us were in the pandemic, we had a lot of those do-it-yourself videos, and we both do a lot of like review videos on products.
Yep.
And some of those review videos I've personally done, I wasn't even paid for them.
Oh yeah, my early ones.
Bought them myself.
Yeah.
And I got not even a penny from them.
Yeah, my early product reviews were exactly like that. Like my first product review that I got, I don't even want to say paid for, but it was sent to me, was the StrongNeck. And after that, I've had a couple of things sent to me, but every product review basically before this year, it was just something I had in my gym, and I just decided to review it just in case other people, because I try to always get more out of less. So a lot of the things I would do, I'd be like, maybe they never thought of using it in this way. Not because I'm trying to get sponsored by the company essentially, but it was just like, what is common sense to me might not be common sense to everyone else. So that's why I would do like those little product reviews. But just like you said, I wasn't paid at all for those early ones.
That's how you know it's coming from the love of the iron, you know, like, but at the same time, even it's probably like this for you too, but one of my most viewed videos is actually the tricep bar. You know, like the neutral grip handle. It's just like looks like an
I think I watched that video. Yeah.
Like that literally took me like 10 minutes to make.
Yeah.
Like one take, boom, and like 100K views, and didn't even think anything of it. And like one day I'm scrolling, I'm like, man, it's got 100K views, and that's the video I used to send to like products and like send me stuff, and you know what I'm saying, like. But it didn't always start like that. Before I was just generally actually buying it myself, and it really showed me that sometimes the content that really like does well or like gets the kind of eyeballs is not really the stuff that we expect. Not really the one that's in demand. And also like I'm learning about the timing is important too. Like when you're talking about the neck, like back in like when I was thinking about this recently when the Bane movie dropped, Batman. Made a trap video around that, like it would have blown up.
That's a good point. Because I remember even Bane, I think it came out a year, or the Batman movie, it came out like a year after Tom Hardy was in a movie called Warrior. Have you seen it?
That one too, yeah. Bronson, Warrior, like that little.
But I'm specifically in the movie Warrior, his traps just they look like they're up to like past his ear. And I remember everyone, like when I first started, was like, I want to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. But then when that movie Warrior came out, everyone wanted traps like Tom Hardy. So you're right, timing is very important when it comes to things like that.
Yeah. But it's funny because the deeper amount of time you spend in the fitness world, the more you start to pick up on certain, like I would have never picked up on that before.
No,
you're right. Channel, but I had the blog in 2015.
Okay.
Maybe ran with that for like 2 years, and I started the channel around 2017-ish, maybe close to 2018.
Oh, so I found you then right when you started then.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Because I found Alpha Destiny's channel in 2017. And I found you, I want to say like a couple of months later. You guys did a video together. So then I found you right when you started. I didn't know that.
Yeah. it's just funny, like the more stuff you learn, and like it really comes down to, you know, and you got a lot of people, for example, back to that Hardy example, who have never touched a weight in their life. And
Yeah.
they walk out of that cinema thinking, I want to look like that.
That's
What
crazy.
look like that? How do I get that look?
Yeah.
Then next thing you know, they stumble across channels like us, or some other bald guy talking about how to grow big traps or whatever, and then that might actually introduce him to the lifting world. He's like, you know, I actually kind of like
That's
this.
true. It's like a gateway.
Yeah, so it's like we all have these little backgrounds of powerlifting, bodybuilding, or recreational lifting, and what really matters is if we're in this for the right reasons, we really want to help people out and help change lives. It's like, how could we use our platforms to suck people into what we have going on, you know? So anyways, so back to that little rant there, you know, so who are your biggest influences? Because I see from your channel, it looks like you look a bit like West Side-ish. Some West Side stuff going on.
You know what's funny? I remember when the trailer for West Side vs. the World came out. I showed my friend who was just very new to lifting weights, and I thought like the trailer was like really intense, and I'm like, I watch it and immediately want to go lift right after. But I showed him because he had no clue what West Side Barbell was. I'm like, doesn't this get you amped up? And he just looks at me dead in the face and he's like, you kind of look like those guys there. Which I thought was really funny. Like I'd say 95% of the people that have gone through there have been bald. It's hilarious. But actually, the West Side was not like one of my early influences. I would say it was more so Jim Wendler, who came through West Side. So I guess it's kind of like that. But what he really taught me simplicity,
Right.
which I still have to this day. Like I remember when I was at like my peak conjugate, it was like everything had to be like 5 sets of 15, and it had to be a weird looking exercise for like my assistant's work or whatever. And I would never repeat a max effort exercise for almost like damn near a year. So I got a little bit too carried away with the whole conjugate method, like rotating things and assistance work. But now I feel like my training is almost a blend of both, where sure I have the max effort rotation and whatever, but it's a little bit more focused. I keep exercises in just until I can't add 5 pounds to the bar the next time I do them. So I would say Jim Wendler was my like original person that I was like, I like training like him, because he also introduced me to stuff like the prowler, and not just being super strong and big and whatever, but also being in good condition, like lungs wise. Because I feel so many people, they get, especially like younger people, get caught up in the aspect of being big and strong, which is not bad by any means, but then they go up a flight of stairs and they're out of breath. That shouldn't be happening with anyone. So that's what I feel would be like my original influence would be Jim Wendler.
You touched on a good point though regarding like running lifts into the ground. I really like that, and I feel like it's kind of like a lost art where there's always this new lift on IG. It's like you guys are missing out on gains because you're not doing this lift, and
Yeah.
we have exercise ADHD now, where it's like I feel like back in the day people didn't change lifts enough.
Now it's the
may have
complete opposite.
much. Yeah, now it's just like, man, like, but I don't like that approach. I think to get really good at a lift, you got to run it to the ground with
Yeah.
good form, obviously, you know. And once you build it, then move on. But there's a lot of program hoppers, you know.
Yeah. See, to me, I have like my max effort lifts with the records. And before, I used to always be like, okay, I have to get like a 30-pound PR next time I come back around to this exercise. But now I just literally, like the other week, I did cambered bar squats. I think it was like 6 weeks ago. And I did 450 for a decent single, like wasn't till my eyes bleed or anything. But the next time I did it, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do 455. And the next time I do it, I'll probably go for 460. But before, it was always like, because I was like, oh, this program is awesome, it must work. Everything had to be like a 50-pound PR, which is just not feasible. Especially if you're not doing the lift week after week. You have to make sure your motor pattern is still there, because that's the thing people don't do a lot. They'll just do deadlifts for back one week, and then the next week they'll do like barbell rows, and the next week they'll do weighted pull-ups, and it's like, but you're all over the place. How are you expecting to get better at something, because exercises like compound movements are skills at the end of the day. I know the muscles are responsible for making you move, but if the motor pattern is not there, then you're just not going to progress. If you could have the strongest back in the world, but if you don't do a chin up for a year, you're going to suck at chin ups after a year. It'll take a while to get back to, but it's not just going to carry over like that because you're stronger at the other lifts.
You're good at what you train at.
Exactly.
And yeah, big time. Like, but at the same time, I'm not one of those guys who thinks that good training should be boring.
I hate that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that phrase because I think I think the best programs are the ones you're excited about still. But
yeah.
I do believe that like shouldn't be entertained every 2 seconds. Like you should look at your logbook and it shouldn't be add a rep here or there, add a weight if you can. Try to milk something. But
I always say if someone wants to like guarantee they'll hit a PR in a workout or just do something different at the end of your workout, just do something different with like a small lift. Let's say, do you remember Derek Poundstone?
You're right.
Yeah, like every once in a while on like a back and bicep workout or upper body workout, just grab the empty bar, see how many times you can curl it. It's some sort of a challenge. It's at the end of your workout. It doesn't affect the integrity of your whole program. It's little things like that that'll make it more exciting, like the opposite of boring, let's say. But you're right. You shouldn't go into a workout thinking, oh, it's all the same lifts as last week, so this workout's gonna suck. Because then you just can't progress like that.
It's crazy, man. Like the deeper you get into this, the more you start to realize, and it's also the questions I get asked, for instance, regarding like people who've literally never touched a weight in their life, and they come and they start working with me, and then now they start, following more fitness channels, and they start asking, which is, it's perfectly fine to ask questions, but it's like people just ask the wrong fucking questions, man.
Yeah, and it's hard because if it's coming from like the untrained eye or just someone that really doesn't have that knowledge, I feel like everyone's kind of guilty of asking those questions, but it's coming from almost, I don't want to say wrong intentions, but that's kind of the best I can come up with right now. It seems like they're looking for like the magic pill or the magic exercise, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, I was actually having this conversation last night about family, how the 3 most popular questions I get asked. Is there 4? No, I would say 3. The top 3 hands down. First of all, how much does it cost? It's like some people, their only criteria for a good coach is what's the price, as if I'm just gonna tell you like a straight up price, It's like
depends on a lot of factors.
Really bothers me, that question, but it's like okay. But then let's just say consultation, boom, 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 everything goes well, and they seem like semi-serious. And now they're in. The next question I get is, what's the best protein powder I gotta buy?
That's funny.
Pisses me off, and it's just like, man, but you got to get the nutrition on point, and I'm giving you the protocols for the meal plans and stuff. And there's sleep. This is another thing that I've been focusing a lot more on is sleep journaling. So basically, when I go to bed, I have a log on my spreadsheet, and it says lights on, lights off, lights on. You go to bed at 11:30, you write that. You wake up, let's say 7:30, you write that. If you didn't get the 8 hours, you write next to it why. But people are not really, and that's a separate drop right there. People are not willing to do that.
Yeah.
So what they do instead is they say this leads me to the third question is, Phil, what's the best pre-workout to buy? It's like you only want a pre-workout because you're sleeping like 5 hours a night.
True.
So people, their lives are like tangled up headphones, and it's like you gotta like start pulling back on certain areas, and like it's.
Do you like pre-workouts in general?
Well, so that's the thing, right? So then people ask me, hey, Phil, do you use pre-workout? Or do you use protein? Do you take protein powder? I'm like, yeah, but it's an ornament on a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Like, babe, you're not doing these 2-3 hour, like 2 hour meal preps like I am,
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the bulk of it, getting a ground protein, pound body weight, this kind of stuff. But I was actually thinking about that the other day regarding the pre-workout. I'm like, it's still a tool you could have. But personally for myself, I don't. But I'm not.
Yeah, neither do I.
I'm not opposed to it though. Like if let's say a company gives me free meal prep, meal plan, pre-workout, I mean.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna turn it down. I'll take it. And like worst case scenario, I have it in my back pocket if I'm really like not feeling it that day. But yeah, I'm rambling a bit. making
No,
it about myself, man. So let's get back to you, man. Um, let's talk about the fitness community, right? Because it's like this
oh
is
my God.
get into the deep stuff, right? So let's go easy. Tell me some stuff that you like about it. Let's not even like go down a negative rabbit hole. Tell me some stuff
Okay,
that you
that's a
generally.
good way to start. The thing that I like about it, it has made people, a chunk of people, more physically active. Whether they're super serious about the gym and follow like a structured program or whatever, the average person ever, especially since like Instagram, social media has come about, you see more people in the gym for maybe the right or wrong reasons, but that's definitely one of the pluses.
Right.
Whether that was a side effect or the intention is up for debate, because I would say before social media and before maybe like the average person had YouTube channels, Instagram, stuff like that, you would really only get fitness advice from pro bodybuilders and like fitness models and whatever, who, in my opinion, give the worst advice to the average person. So that's one thing. I think maybe these people have become more relatable, because even if you look at people like even Mark Bell, who's made millions of dollars over his whole business, he's pretty much just an average person at the end of the day. It's not like he was a celebrity. It's not like he was an ex-NFL player or something like that. So you look at people, I'm just trying to think of people when I first started watching, maybe like Max Tuning. He had a YouTube channel, just an average dude. You can even say Alex Alva Destiny, just an average dude. So these people I think are more relatable in a sense. So people, I think, see these videos and say, if they can do it, why can't I? As opposed to someone like maybe like Ronnie Coleman, they look at that and be like, that person doesn't even look like they're the same species as I am. So I think that that's the one biggest plus or positive I can see in fitness.
I would agree on that 100%. Like it's not who's really gonna relate to Ronnie, you know, if we're talking about
Exactly.
Gen Pop.
Yeah, no, not even close. Because people look at that and just you, not even just what he looks like. You look at those old school training videos, what he's lifting. No one's gonna say, "Hey, I want to try that." Only crazy people would.
But you know what's funny? People they like to bash like the assisted side, you know? But
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
for
a
sure.
lot of people, if you really like give credit where it's due, guys, like I was never really a Dragon Ball Z guy, but like maybe a little bit, but that definitely was the reason why I started, you know.
Yeah,
But a lot of people did start because of that,
that's very true.
and they're jacked out of their freaking minds, you know, and
That
like,
yeah.
and it's just
Who's that guy? There's one guy. He's the Asian dude. He has like a name. It's like something to do with Dragon Ball Z. Like it's the whole identity of his whole channel. I can't.
Goku Flex.
That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Goku Flex. Yeah. No, that you're right. There, I think there's a lot. There's even like workout like shirts that say like train and Saiyan or whatever. Like I feel like
that's cool.
that's been a big motivator for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Whether you think it's corny or not is irregardless. If it gets someone in the gym, then it gets someone in the gym, right?
but let's keep it honest. Like a lot of people wouldn't have been lifting if it wasn't for Arnold, you know, and like these guys who are on massive amounts of stuff.
That's true.
A lot of people wouldn't be lifting if these Dragon Ball Z characters look natty. Not the same, man. Like it, some of them do, but some of them obviously don't. If they
No,
if they're
but even the ones that like even if you look up like the official Dragon Ball Z fandom website, like Goku's apparently like 5'4", like 140 pounds. If you told me that when I was 8 years old, I'd be like, no, he's not. He's like 300 pounds. You know what I mean? Just because of the way the muscles, it's all like traps. Their necks are huge if you really look. And I think when you're younger and like not educated on like physiques in general, you don't even notice the size of someone's neck or their traps. It's like their arms, their chest, their shoulders, and if they have abs. But it's
man.
subconsciously it's there.
Back to that Bane example. I remember I don't even think I was lifting at the time, but when I saw that Bane movie, I actually thought he weighed 300 pounds. I swear.
I think he said he was like 195 in that movie.
Yeah, the traps and like that
Yeah.
look. I think like just to touch on what you just said before, there's the relatability aspect. So you got like the Alpha Destinies, the Tunings, like the Nick Wrights, all those guys, and the newer
Yeah.
generation. And then you got the freaky side. So it pokes you from different angles. And when you want motivation, you could reach out to you could watch certain guys
Yeah.
like that extra motivation and you're feeling really like juicy, whatever. Watch those other guys.
Yeah. So it's almost like there's two sides of online fitness in general. There's the side that most people are probably not going to identify with, and then there's the rest.
Yeah, but it's like I like to call it the dreamer side. You know, you know you're not gonna look like that, but you want to like if you see Ronnie Coleman like doing those front squats, like, and then you're like
Yeah.
I'm squatting today, like it's still motivational, man. Like
Yeah, because you're thinking like the effort he's putting into those front squats, you want to apply that same effort, regardless if the weight is a third, a quarter, whatever it is.
yeah, 100%. So I agree on that. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a positive in the YouTube fitness world. It's that influencers have, it's the relatability. You got any other ones?
Um,
It's probably the big one.
it's definitely grown the sport of powerlifting, which is still a very niche sport. But I would say if it wasn't for people like maybe like Omar Isuf, even though I don't think he's ever competed, Johnny Candido, people like that, I don't think powerlifting would have taken off the way it did, because a lot of people don't know before, I want to say like 2010, 2011-ish, powerlifting was essentially just geared powerlifting. And how are you going to get the average person to be like, look at this 300-pound guy waddling to the bench press with his arms out? They won't even know why his arms are out like this. Wouldn't know what a bench shirt is, right? So I feel like the Dan Greens, all those like Pete Rubish, all those guys made what we know as powerlifting today more popular in general. Because how are you going to convince someone, oh, in order to compete in this sport, you have to buy a squat suit and a bench shirt and knee sleeves and all this stuff? It's just, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah,
So that's another positive, I would say.
I'd go a step further and say it's other underground sports too. Like no one really knew what arm wrestling was. No one really knew what strongman, yeah, but not much.
I feel like most people used to associate strongman with, I don't know what the name of it is, but it was almost like they were like lumberjacks. They were like cutting down trees and shit like that. Yeah, I don't know what that sport is called, but I feel like a lot of people associated strongman with that, which it's not. That's something totally different. But yeah, you're right. It has exposed people to different avenues in a way. Like I wouldn't even know who Derek Poundstone was if YouTube fitness like wasn't around.
Cool, yeah, and that a lot of that has to do with the. It goes back to the freaky side, you know. You want to
Yeah.
watch like a 450-pound man like lift his body weight overhead.
Yeah.
Head.
Because it's essentially entertainment at that point, right?
Yeah, so it's badass.
Most people that watch football, hockey, basketball, they'll never reach that level either, but they do it because they're entertained.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I didn't realize how many people watched my channel who didn't even lift weights till recently.
That's crazy to think of, actually.
Yeah, I had some people contact me, like obviously not all at once, but like throughout this whole YouTube journey, and say, you know, I don't even work out, but I just like really funny, you know?
That's weird because like if I wasn't interested in that, like I wouldn't watch, I don't know, a sewing channel. You know what I mean? Like
I'm surprised. Like some people just watch, like some people like watching people just get tattoos, or people just get like beard ups, or just like the weirdest stuff you could think of, and they're just people are tuning in. And
that's true. I guess it all depends on the presentation of the video.
yeah, my theory behind that is people associate with people who are like them. So that's what we're talking right now, there's commonalities. So if let's say I have another like balded brother who's watching the video and he's like he doesn't even lift, he's like, oh, okay, there's this Phil guy, he lifts. He did a Q&A with Peter and he lifts too. It's like, what's up with that? Why is he lifting? You know, like, and he's like, okay, well, it looks pretty badass. So it's people people are observing and they're, you know,
I could see that.
it's interesting, you know, and psychology that goes behind it. But as far as the what bothers you, like I know there's a laundry list. We could limit it.
Yeah. To me, it's like I can't remember. I won't say. Actually, no, I do remember. I won't say his name though. But when you look at his channel, it's probably grown exponentially the amount. Like I think from when I saw his channel, I want to say it was like 2016 to 2017. At that point, if you went to his playlist for a full day of eating, he had like 347 videos. Who wants to watch someone's full day of eating 347 times? Like it's
Like
there,
that.
there's got to be someone. But to me, it was like when someone's doing the same thing over and over and over again, it just, I don't know. It's just maybe it's because I'm like I don't understand how they're getting this views and I don't. Maybe it's like a slight jealousy thing, but I find when someone just acts on camera in a disingenuous way, like they're overly excited, they sound like a YTV show host, like it's just that's one thing I don't like when it's like there's no way you act like this in real life. Maybe you're playing it up a bit, but there's some people that are playing it up to an extent that it just becomes unenjoyable to watch. That's one thing. And then also everyone is selling something. Like there can't be 50 million people with knowledge for coaching. I would go as far as to say a quarter of the people that offer coaching are probably offering good coaching. You see some people are lifting for 8 months, maybe they hop on something and they look really good and all of a sudden they're a coach. To me, that makes no sense. Like you can't be a coach for anything unless you've put in the hours in whatever that activity is. I'm not even just talking about lifting at that point. Because a lot of people give out some really bad programs. If you want to ever see someone's sample program, just go on Reddit, type in that person's name and coaching, and you'll either hear good things or some really bad things. A lot of them just give copy and paste cookie cutter programs, but because they have a big following or they're really strong or really lean, really jacked, they can get away with that. Which
Big time,
that's
man.
that's the consumer's fault at that point if they're falling for that. But that's just one thing, like shady marketing. Like even we were talking about another guy. I'm cool with not saying names, right? Because I don't want to make it look like I'm bashing an individual channel. Whoever we were talking about the other day. Pardon?
You can do what you want, man.
Okay. So Kino Body, this guy has a video the other day where he's essentially describing progressive overload to a room full of 19-year-olds like he just discovered a new element on the periodic table. And it's like, I'm like, and the people in the audience are amazed, and I'm just like, how? Like, how? I understand they're young, but the way he was describing it was like he just found out the secret. And I'm just like, I don't get it.
Okay. I'm not cutting the video off, by the way. But anyways, because
Yeah,
we're just keeping it rolling. But
yeah.
it's not necessarily me taking his place. It all comes down to context.
Yeah.
But you look at it from a business sense, man. Like this is something I've been learning a lot about, and I was talking to Herschel about this in the last episode. How you gotta a lot of people throw their tags on stuff, which is not necessarily bad. Like I think Kino even did the what was it? It was first it was reverse pyramid training, and then it was
Yeah.
what, Kino rep training.
Kino rep. Yeah. I remember I made a video making fun of it. I honestly don't remember what it was.
Yeah, but it's like even myself, I used to be kind of like antsy about that. I'm like, man, just call it what it is. But at the same time, with what I'm learning about branding, and I don't think it's shady. I think it's just like I think you got to give credit where it's due.
Yeah, it's not shady. I'm not saying it's bad business. It's just a tad annoying to watch. That's all it is.
I think it's annoying when it's like if I were to do this and say it's the fill row where it's the medals row, like that's disrespectful because
Yeah.
like that's not my lift. So it's like
I,
so
I actually have a story about that. I was going to bring it up, and that's a perfect segue. I mentioned pound stone curls before, right? Just 45-pound barbell, 100 reps, right? So then Paul Carter, somewhere down the line, he would call them pound stone curls, but he decided I'm going to do like 200 reps with the bar, and he called them Carter curls. And this is no accident. The next day, Derek Poundstone did a set with like 400 reps. And I'm like, you cannot tell me that wasn't like a message saying, I saw that video.
yeah.
I thought that was funny.
I'm at peace with it, honestly.
No, yeah, it's just
I'm
a
at peace.
tad annoying.
Yeah. But even when I was in Malta, I had one of my buddies who's like because I was really into the pause reps for some reason. I was doing a lot of
Okay.
training while I was there. And one of
Pauses
my
are good.
yeah, he's like, why don't you call them statue reps because you just look like a statue when you're at the top and you look like you're a statue when you're at the bottom.
Is that why you changed the name of your channel?
Statue Fit?
Yeah.
Oh no, statue fit. That's for a completely different reason. Man.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say it's a pretty cool backstory then.
No, the backstory for the Statue Fit channel, for those who are curious, was I basically got my new spot and I had nothing in it, and I'm just like, I'm looking for furniture. I'm just like, nah, I don't really like the furniture I'm seeing, you know. And I basically went to go buy a clock, which I'd never ended up using. But I remember I went to this person's house and she had like tons of statues. I'm like, this is like water fountain statues, all types of statues. And from there, I'm just like, you know, like I'm just gonna get a couple statues and
Okay.
and
That's pretty cool.
Just like the aesthetic of it. But I like.
If you gave me like 20 guesses, I don't think I ever would have came to that conclusion.
But like it's also like time. The statue, it goes deep in that. It's like timeless ideas.
Okay.
What has stood the test of time, and if you look at a statue, like it stands for something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was like those Roman Greek statues, like that's the physique that was considered something along those lines.
There's the aesthetic standpoint too. Like a lot of statues do look aesthetic and are quote unquote timeless. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about, it seems to be more on the timeless side.
True.
So I don't but then again, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, it doesn't get the crazy views because it's kind of boring in a sense when you talk about progressive overload, like meal prep, progressive overload.
Yeah.
People are like, yeah, we've heard that story before. Like, what's the new stuff? What's the tools that we gotta buy?
Yeah.
So, but I'm okay with that. But
no, yeah, me too.
Along the journey, you gotta like tag some of the stuff. I'm just like, you know what? Let me just have fun with it. Like, it's not even that serious at the end of the day. So I'm like, let me just try statue reps. And it's just like, yeah, it's pause reps, but it's called the statue reps. But it's like, you notice, like now when I go on people's channels, I don't just look at their lifts or their client testimonials or like the lifter's body. Like I'll look at the big picture. Like what are they doing branding wise? And that's what a lot of these guys are doing. You know, they'll add like a very, very slight modification to a lift. All of a sudden, bam, it's their lift.
Yeah.
It used to bother me, but now I'm like, you know what? It's cool.
Like even Spoto presses, which cool. I don't know if you've noticed, no one does those anymore. As soon as Eric Spoto kind of retired from benching, all of a sudden everyone forgot that was an exercise. Same thing with Z press. A lot of strongmen do that, but like the average person, like croc rows, I barely see anyone do those anymore. It seems like we're saying those are like flavors. Even though those are all exercises that have had names slapped on them, I like all three of those, but it's just they're not cool and new and exciting anymore. So why do them?
You see, like regarding the question I asked you, that's what bothers me. It's everything has to be the new
trendy
flavor of the month, like you just said.
Yeah,
that's what bugs me.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I don't like how this ADHD era where it's like everything has to be and that's why I follow some of these UK bodybuilders, man, because like a lot of them were influenced by Dorian Yates, and Dorian just kept it. Dorian was really ahead of his time, you know, and
yeah, for sure.
People who still talk about barbell rows, and like just lifts that, like, you know, timeless stuff. You can't go wrong, and like, but it's also the stuff that is hard that oftentimes is not marketable.
Of course, yeah.
Like that's hard work. Freestanding barbell rows. Most people are complaining about their lower backs. Most people are like. The optimal crowd's like, nah, I can't recover from that.
I've actually never understood that. Like, unless you're using, like, I'll deadlift and not feel my back be super fatigued. Sure, it has to be getting fatigued because it's worked. But like, if I were to do barbell rows, it'd probably be in like the 225 to 275 range. And as weird as it sounds, I stabilize it all with my glutes and my hamstrings. I rarely ever feel it in my lower back, maybe just because they're stronger than my lower back, possibly. But I don't understand how people think, oh, barbell rows are not good. Bro, you're rowing 185 pounds. Like, if your back is getting fatigued from that, there's other issues. Maybe just raise the strength of your lower back. That'll fix all the problems right there. But everything has to be chest supported with a foam roller in front of it, one arm, underhand grip in order to somewhat be effective. Like that's another person I don't like is Ben Yangs. because all of his exercises are like that. But I'm sorry, if you feel the need to modify an exercise in every single aspect, negative, eccentric, concentric, squeeze, grip, all that stuff, then how did anyone get big and strong before all that stuff? They were all genetic freaks. There's no way I believe that.
Yeah, to people watching right now, man, this is just opinions, So
yeah, there's nothing.
I have my opinion. Peter has his. So we're not. He's throwing shade. I'm not throwing shade, but my opinions too, We
Throw
just
me under the bus.
express them in different ways, But
of course,
I stopped drinking the optimal Kool-Aid a while back too, when I was doing a lot of like those one-arm cable rows and like.
Yeah.
My back was the biggest when I was doing the snatch grip RDLs, the snatch grip deadlifts, like just like heavy chest supported rows, full protraction, full scapular retraction, just like heavy cheat shrugs and like front squats, build the upper back too, and like what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is my back was the biggest when I wasn't doing any cable work, basically.
Yeah, and that's fair.
I don't miss cable work at all, and like. I think it has its place. I'm never gonna dismiss cables. I think I use it for triceps, but I would never make a cable lift like a main lift, or not even like a secondary back lift. So anyways, that's just my personal opinion too.
What I don't like about the term optimal is it's so hard to brand something as optimal, because it's not like when you do an exercise you get like a spreadsheet and immediate feedback on was that the best exercise for you at the time.
Right.
Like optimal can be different. It's different for every single person. It can be different for the 25-year-old you versus the 30-year-old you. Optimal's constantly changing. So I feel like this optimal crowd, they say optimal like that's an absolute truth, and it's across the board, your entire training career, whatever you want to call it, which is just simply not the case. Like you said, when your back was the biggest, you were doing X, Y, and Z. No cable work is in any of those letters. So, and there might be some people who, when their back was the biggest, they were doing heavy lat pull downs and heavy cable rows. Who's to say who's right and who's wrong? It just all depends on what you respond to. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Here's another thing I'll touch up on. The reason why you see so many different, the best back exercise, the best shoulder exercise. I was wondering this for years, Simply put, people have different mobility restrictions and different movement options. Hence why I told you I'm always in this plane. What's going on, guys? And like I like this to be internally rotated, and just I like to do my curls like this. I don't like being out here.
Yeah.
Just either neutral or here, and like those are the planes of motion I connect the best with. And the same way other people will connect better with certain other exercises,
Yeah, that's all it is. And then like when people will argue till they're blue in the face on who's right and who's wrong, like what a waste of energy.
Yeah, some conversations are just not even worth having.
Yeah.
Like if two people are not really that strong, then what's the point of like? I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Like the splitting hairs, you got to focus.
Exactly.
If somebody wants to look like a monster, like huge, or like at least big naturally speaking, it's not by debating on which one arm pull down is better.
Yeah.
Oh, should I be using? No. My back's not big, so I'm not using a semi-pronated grip.
Yeah.
I switched to a semi-pronated to a neutral. Biggest difference. Like that's not gonna be the game changer.
You know what's funny about that? They'll make a tiny switch like that. Like even someone was saying barbell rows are the best back exercise, and I didn't agree or disagree with that. But then it was on Reddit. Then I read into why he was saying that, and he said he hadn't done them for a year, and then the first time he did them again, his back was sore for 4 days. Well, you just gave your body a completely foreign stimulus that it hasn't had for over a year. Of course you're going to be sore. I feel like anyone that's trained for even maybe 1 to 2 years, no soreness is not an indicator of success.
Big time, yeah.
It's just you gave yourself a stimulus that it's not used to. That doesn't mean growth is occurring, and it doesn't mean you're regressing or everything in between. It just means you're sore. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that is the best exercise. It's just a different stimulus. And I feel like with the optimal crowd too, they always make those exercises as what's the word for it? not taxing as things like rows, squats, benching, and that sells to the average person. Where it's like, why do this exercise where you have to put a lot of weight and it's difficult when you can put a third of the effort into doing this exercise?
That's the type of branding that bothers me. It's
Yeah,
you don't have to train 4 times a week, upper lower. No, it's not necessary. Come to the gym twice a week, and those other 5 days, you gotta recover. And
yeah,
then it's like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. It's way too much. The study said this. It's like, no, you're good. You're good with 0.5. You're good with 0.6. It's okay.
yeah.
And then it's like, so you're training. What are you left for? You're training twice a week. Your protein intake is super low. What are you doing the other 5 days?
Yeah.
Like if you're
How stressful could your life be that, like, I could see if, like, let's say maybe you're a truck driver and you can only train 2 days a week.
that's different.
That's totally different. But for someone that has the time to
Yeah.
say training 2 times a week is optimal for them because they're getting 5 days of recovery. Okay, maybe you're getting a lot of recovery, but are you imposing a demand on your body that dictates 5 days worth of recovery? Probably not, if I had to guess.
If you're not doing any other sports or anything like that, and
Exactly. Yeah, the only people that really train 2 days a week are people, are like athletes, essentially, that have maybe practicing 2 a days, something like that. So they're just trying to maintain size and strength for however they need to look for competition.
yeah, that hands down is probably the top one that pisses me off about the fitness world. It's the people who try to make it sound so easy, and they use the shady marketing. When I dropped my Silverback book, for example, I said this program is not for everybody. I have it written in the what's it called,
Index or the
commercial,
beginning.
like when you go on the website and you're about to check.
Oh, the description. Yeah, I just call it
Description. Yeah, I read this program is not for everybody. If you're not ready to put in work, follow something else.
Yeah, because I remember I read that. It was pretty intense. I'm not gonna lie.
But that's gonna scare some people off.
Of course.
But I want them to know what they're getting themselves into. And a lot of people, they follow the opposite approach, and it bothers me because it's like it's not the case, man. It's not the case. It's false. You're not gonna get jacked. I know there's somebody in the comments who's gonna be like, yeah, well, I train twice a week. You could, but that's not gonna get you. You're still resting 5 days, unless it's like the most brutal workout. Like no bodybuilders who are like at the top, like natural or even non-natural, train twice a week.
Yeah.
Let's be real, So, or people who say like the old man, like all you need is 1 meal a day, man. The monks in the mountains, they're jacked out of their minds. All they do is meditate all day in the ball, and like they eat 1 meal a day, and they always have these
like anecdotal examples.
Yeah, and it's like, are they actually jacked?
Yeah.
Like the construction work, for example.
Even when what was the paleo diet first became really popular, people would like show these pictures of like really jacked cavemans. I'm like, let's be honest. Do we know if they actually look like that? We have a guess, but like you can't tell me that their lifestyle was perfect. Like it's just a way to market it. Same with intermittent fasting. It's nothing new. It's nothing new, but it's just marketing. That's all it is.
Yeah, with the IF, like I have mixed thoughts about that, but then some people have a very big emotional attachment to it. But at the same time, if they're gonna follow that's my philosophy. The best plan is the one you're not gonna quit after 2 weeks.
Exactly, 100%.
CrossFit's your thing.
Do it.
Run with it. You're IF guy. You like IF. Run with it. So anyways.
Yeah.
Anything else you would say about the things you're not crazy about in the fitness world? That's a big one right there.
I would say, now it is a business, but I would say like selling shirts. Like how many people can be selling shirts after a while? You know what I mean? Like I know Omar Isuf did a lot. They would be like Dragon Ball Z designs and whatever. Like if you have a shirt that just has your logo on it and you sell, but these people are making shirts and they're taking ideas from like other cartoons and other slogans and whatever, and then creating it as their own. It's like, I don't know, that seems copyrightish to me. And it just seems like, I understand it's their business at the end of the day, but it's just a little annoying coming from fitness people. I just don't know why. It's just a little annoying. Like if you make a logo and it's yours, that's fine. But I don't like when they take like other things. I don't know what's a good example. Like they'll take like I don't know, like the movie 300, and right, instead of this is Sparta, they'll write this is and then something from their channel. But they'll have like a Spartan that looks exactly like Leonidas on their thing, and it's like, did you really even come up with that? I don't know.
It doesn't bother me, honestly. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like,
no.
uh, uh, I think people want to be part of something, and
Yeah,
people
that's
want to be
true
part of
too.
something. They'll buy the merch, and they'll show up to the Fit Expos wearing the
Yeah,
merch. Oh, it is what it is. It's cool.
yeah.
It's like it doesn't really bother me,
No, no,
but
no.
I
Yeah,
see.
that one I would say is on the bottom of the totem pole. What we just talked about with the promising that things are easy, that would be my number one if I had to rank them.
Yeah, for sure. So let's transition from that. So let's talk more about training and not like
Yeah.
this type of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about getting bigger arms, man. What's your biggest advice? No BS.
Okay.
Bigger arms.
Um, the upper arm, obviously, right?
Yeah, enough forearms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I think this would be like the simplest thing that I would say is train the long head of your tricep. That's something I feel like it's an afterthought. A lot of people do their things like lying down and very little things overhead or where you're getting that stretch. Just because, and even if they do it, they're doing it like later in their workout, almost like as just like a pump. But if you do like heavy overhead extensions, and even one thing that's always bothered me is that people think like the bench press works your shoulders, but overhead movements don't.
Who says that?
A lot of people, like a lot of beginners think like the overhead press does not work their triceps, which makes no sense. If you're locking out your arms, then your triceps have been worked, no matter what the angle is.
The range of motion is huge on the.
Yeah. One thing that's really good for arms, I think it was Ted Arcidi used to do this. He used to sit in a power rack and he used to go on like a seated bench and put it at like his nose area and just lock out over and over again. He would do like heavy sets of like 4 to 6, and then he would then burn out with like a 15 to 25. I find that's really good for the long head. And then there's the traditional like dumbbell overhead extension, easy curl overhead extension, even like where you do almost like a pullover extension on a flat bench, anything where you're getting your arm kind of in line with your torso. That'd be the easiest thing. That would solve a lot of people's issues with arms. And then I find weighted calisthenics are great for
I was about to touch upon that, man.
arms in general. Like, as you look at gymnasts, you look at calisthenic guys, their arms always seem to be a strong point of their physique. And I know a lot of them are on the smaller side, but I've also taken that into account when you just look at their arm muscles compared to the rest of their body. Always seem to stand out because they do a lot of chin-ups and inverted rows with like a supinated grip, dips, push-ups, like diamond push-ups, close grip, whatever. So weighted calisthenics are really good for arms in general.
So underrated. Yeah.
Yeah, no, really.
Touch up on that. I was gonna mention this. If you go on two boxes like a deficit,
Yeah.
and not everybody has this, but like you have a weight vest, a heavy one, and you go as narrow as you can where the weight vest has some clearance.
Yeah.
You do like a close grip deficit weight vest push-up. It sounds long. Like that smokes your triceps, man.
Yeah, I've been doing push-ups where I get two kettlebells and I put my hand like on the curved part of it. It's really comfortable like on the wrists and hands, and I find you grip the kettlebell in like a different way than you would like having it flat on the floor or holding dumbbells. It just has a very unique feel. But yeah, push-ups, dips, you can even do I don't know what they're called, but when you do push-ups with a barbell in the rack, almost like to simulate like let's say a bench press.
Right,
You
gotcha.
could do it at different angles. Like you could almost do a drop set where you like move up the rack. A Smith machine is a really good use for that because you can easily change. You don't have to change the J hooks. That would really smoke your arms.
A vest. He was doing like he had like it's like a vest and there's weight attached. It's like a loading pin hanging off your stomach.
Oh, and then did he hang chains off it?
No,
No.
plate. So picture like a loading pin, plates.
Yeah.
You're in the push-up position, and he has the vest, and it's like
Was it like an X design?
looks like that. Yeah,
I've seen that. Yeah.
pretty smart, man.
Yeah. And then he was doing it like higher up off the floor so they wouldn't hit the floor. Yeah, I've seen that. But when it comes to the bicep portion. I
Right.
like doing things that are like Zotman curls, where you come up supinated and down pronated. Because I like any exercise that hits the brachialis muscle, because it's a muscle you can't really see. So a lot of people, like, if you ask people like how many biceps there are, they say one. They won't even know there's two heads. That's for like the noobs, the uneducated. But what I like about that, I think it was Lee Priest that talked about it, when you do like cross body hammer curls or anything that it's just not a typical curl. The brachialis, when it gets bigger, it actually increases the distance between your tricep and bicep. So even though the actual muscle, the visible muscle of your arms are not bigger, because that has got bigger, it's pushed your arms out to the side. So it gives the illusion that your arm's a lot bigger.
Got you.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of barbell curls. I don't know why.
Well, simply put, it goes back to what I was saying before, man. Some people,
The anatomy, yeah.
yeah, they're just that's one thing. That's a Ben Yanes post he made that I agree with, man. It's like that easy bar.
Okay, if he said that, I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, but even easy bars for some people, man, like it just doesn't feel that good, man. Like you
See, I
grab
prefer the
dumbbell.
easy bar, and that could be why I don't like being with, because I find when I barbell curl, I have to start off with my elbows out, but then to get the weight moving, I really have to tuck my elbows to the side. And I feel like I mainly just feel it on the inner part of my forearm when I do that. So you're
Yeah.
right, maybe just the straight bar is not built for my anatomy, essentially how it is.
You made a great post about bicep training regarding which I'm not even that engaged in the stuff, but he drops some gems sometimes. Like some lifters, they build so much muscle and their lats pop so much that their elbow is not pointing perpendicular to the ground. So that's why when you see like the big bodybuilders, what they'll do is alternating curls and they'll do a lateral flexion, they'll lean on one side.
Okay, I have seen them do that.
Yeah, because it feels awkward if my elbow's pointing here and I'm doing
Yeah.
a curl. Like it's some people it feels weird. Like the bigger guys doing unilateral arm training. But anyways, like
I just thought it's because they were using so much weight.
yeah, there's no one size fits all, man. Like
No, of course.
and that's and even if you take just that bilateral dumbbell curl, there's so many different ways to do it. You could do it in different planes of motion. You could lean forward a bit, you could lean back a bit, you could do it off an inclined bench, off a wall.
Yeah.
Like so many, you could even alternate with it, whatever the case is. But
even the guy from T Nation, the Christian Thibodeau,
oh, of course, yeah.
he talked about doing like a mechanical drop set where you start off, I don't know the order, but you start off leaning forward, doing dumbbell curls, and then you'll come up and then you'll lean back. So it's like you're giving yourself either you want to give yourself more mechanical advantage or less as the set goes on.
Got you.
Yeah.
Transition to the bench, man. So tell the audience, man, like what's your best bench?
My bench has never been good, and I'll tell you, for years, and I'm talking like 7-8 years, most of the time I've been pressing, and I was basically set up for failure. I came across a geared powerlifting video, but I didn't know it was for geared powerlifting. So for years I would press with my shoulder blades retracted through the whole range of motion. Now just imagine that, retract your shoulder blades and then try and do the concentric while keeping it, it's just not comfortable at all. Like you get zero pec activation. So for years, my pecs were just not even involved in my bench press. So I still feel like I'm still catching up because of all those years of essentially benching wrong, which could explain why I feel like I'm actually stronger the more inclined I get, because I'm able to retract my shoulder blades less throughout all the range of motion. So my bench, I think the best bench I've ever done was like 350. And when I tell, like when I'm at jiu-jitsu and tell someone that, their jaw hits the floor. But when you tell someone that's lifted weights, they're like, oh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like it basically, I look like it should be higher than 350. I'll put it that way.
365, honestly.
Somewhere around there.
But I saw you're doing 275 on incline on the story today, no?
Yeah, I've been doing incline as one of my max effort things, but it's the way I set up my max efforts is I try and do a single, but there's some weeks where it's just supposed to be like a heavy-ish single, just enough to, like, I think last time I did incline, it was like 270 for a comfortable one. So this time I did 275 for a comfortable one. So
Gotcha.
that's all it comes down to, but it does feel more comfortable the more inclined I am. Like for example, I can do 225 overhead, and that feels a lot more impressive than what I can bench. And it could just be like my anatomy, like what we were saying before. I'm built to, maybe my shoulders are stronger, just my shoulder capsule likes being in an inclined or upright position more. There could be a lot of factors to it. But
As far as like, obviously, bench more, you've got to bench more. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Like, still specificity, we're never going to deny that. But like, what's one lift? Just one lift you could say, if this lift goes up, say like a weighted push up or
Oh,
a
I
dead
can
bench, or, you know
I
what I'm
can
saying?
easily say, like, did you just say dead bench?
Dead bench, yeah.
Yeah, dead bench with a Swiss bar.
Okay, if that goes up, your bench goes up.
I find that is like an unreal lift because you have to stay tight. It's almost like you're, instead of benching, I like to think of you're just pushing something off your chest. But I find before I used to do it where I would unrack it, set it on the pins and do like a pin bench and then come up. But I find it's a hell of a lot harder if you get underneath it and have to kind of like coil yourself underneath and then explode up. Because even though you're putting it down onto the pins, you're still getting some sort of stretch reflex. So I find if you're going to do it completely dead, it's good. If I do it with the straight bar, I'll do it maybe like 2 inches off my chest because I find that's where I get stuck, kind of that transition point. Whereas I'll never fail a bench where it's like I'll get down there and it just doesn't move at all. I have pretty good pop off my chest, but then I get stuck when I have to transition to like chest to shoulders to tricep. I get stuck in that first transition. So that's why when I do a dead bench with a straight bar, I'll do it where it's like maybe 2-3 inches off my chest. That's a money lift.
But the Swiss bar is right off. It's like right
Yeah,
off.
Swiss bar, like it's like right on me.
Okay, got you.
I have to kind of like angle it so I can get under and then flatten it back out. Like you can literally see my shirt coming through the bar when I do it with the Swiss thing.
Interesting. It's always nice to see other people's perspectives, you know?
For sure.
How about overhead?
Overhead,
Standing, well, let me specify then, standing overhead. Because I know
like the standard overhead. Like what brings it up?
Yeah.
I like
For you.
doing what I mentioned before, but a slight twist. I'll do it seated and I'll put it maybe mid throat and do it like, I guess, a dead seated overhead press. I find that's really good for the starting position. Because I find, and might be just very specific to me, that when I'm doing the standard overhead press, there's very little difference between the standing and the seated. Because if you can hold, I don't know, anywhere in the 400 to 500s with a squat, standing with an overhead press of like something in the 200 pounds shouldn't be that taxing on your core. It's more about holding it in this position, which you get from a seated press anyway. Now, a lot of people say standing is better and seated is whatever works for you.
Right.
But I find standing overhead presses with bands is really good. And the seated press that I just said, those are two really good lifts for bringing up the overhead press. And what's actually been bringing up my overhead press strength a lot is I just got some kettlebells, and overhead pressing with kettlebells, it just feels really unique. I haven't used them enough to understand why, but I just find like I feel so stable pressing overhead now that I've been really prioritizing pressing overhead with a kettlebell.
Yeah, I see you use the kettlebells quite a bit on your.
Yeah.
So you do like Cossacks and like different.
Yeah, I've been using them a lot for mobility. Yeah.
Got you. Would you say your lower body's stronger than your upper?
Yeah, just for years.
Upper and your lower, for sure.
Yeah, my lower body's definitely stronger than my upper body. I feel like one mistake I made, and I think it's because of the way Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 is programmed. No matter what the lift is, the day is programmed exactly the same. So the amount of volume you're doing for your squat and deadlift is the same volume you're doing for your bench and overhead press in like the standard program, which to me, the upper body needs more volume, or maybe my upper body needs more volume.
Got you.
So I was actually probably doing too much volume for my lower body, but I could still tolerate it. So I was still progressing at that rate, and then not enough for my upper body. So my upper body has been pretty much been playing catch up for like 5 or 6 years. But yeah, my lower body is definitely stronger than my upper body.
So would you say the pin stuff for squats applies too?
Yeah, one of my favorite things, and I think we were talking about this the other day, is to do Zerchers off pins. That's one of my absolute favorite lower body exercises to do. To the point where I don't even do normal Zercher squats. I just do them off pins.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And for about deadlifts?
For what? Oh, in general? Ever since I started jiu-jitsu, I started doing more sumo deadlifts to strengthen hips. But I just basically, when it comes to deadlifts, rotate between snatch grip variations, sumos, and deficit deadlifts. Very rarely do I pull straight from the floor conventional unless I want to see what my 1 rep max is.
Got you.
Because I find if I do deficits enough, anywhere from 2 to 3 inches, then I feel like it's a similar enough motor pattern that I can just do it straight from the floor, and it feels like I'm doing a block pull because I've been doing deficits for so long.
Talk to us about your experience with the high pull, man. I always like a nice high pull story, man, because I feel like so many people have different experiences with them. Before we transition to that, let me just tell you my experience with it.
Okay.
I feel like it's a really. Let me hear yours first, man. Actually.
Okay. High pulls. I think I saw it was in an article on Elite FTS by I think it's Steve Pulcinella.
That's him, yeah.
Have you seen that article?
Of course.
Okay. So when I first saw that, first of all, I'm like, how the hell is this guy moving that much weight to his chin? Like I was just in awe. So then I think the first time I did it, it was like 135. And to me, I felt like I was doing the exact same thing. And then I watched the video of myself and I'm like, oh, this looks nowhere near as close. And then I dialed in my form and everything. But I know I talked earlier about soreness not being an indicator of success, but anytime I do high pulls with a snatch grip, I don't know what it is, I cannot shrug my shoulders for the next 2 days. Even if there was a point in time where I was doing them 4 times a week and my traps were just permanently sore that week. Because it's just you get such an explosive contraction at the top that it's impossible for them not to grow at that point. Like I actually had to stop doing them because my traps were getting too big and they were dominating other muscles.
Well, I don't know if you saw Thibodeau's article back in the day. I think it was called.
Oh, yeah.
It might have been called the Power Look, or it might have been
Power Look, yeah.
He was talking about how the snatch grip high pull done from the hang transforms your body and not
in like 2 workouts or something like that. Yeah. And I agree with that. Like that sounds like such a exaggerated statement, but I actually agree with that.
Yeah. But the thing is, the high pull, man, like I think it's a great lift. However, I think it lends itself to a lot of cheating. Yep. I don't know if you're familiar with the panda pull, where you see guys like really, like these Olympic weightlifters will really duck under like hard.
Okay.
And like
bring their chin to the bar instead of the bar to their chin type of thing. Yeah.
It's not like the triple extension, whatever you want to call it, where they come up and then like the bar is like.
They're essentially jumping with the barbell in their hand.
Yeah, just like how people do cheat rolls and they duck under like hard. Like I find as it gets really heavy, it becomes very hard to standardize. And
those are Olympic weightlifters that did that?
Yeah.
But like ones like that are like in the Olympics?
Type in panda pull and you'll see.
Okay. Because if they are like professionals, then they obviously know why they're doing it. Whereas if you see someone just comes across that video, they'll just think, oh, I'll just load this up as much as I can. It doesn't matter where the bar ends, because it's not like a bench press where the bar touches your chest. There's a defined end and beginning range of motion, right? Whereas the high pull, you almost have to film yourself in the beginning, because you can think you're coming up to your sternum or your clavicle or even your chin, and then you rewatch it and you realize you're not even close.
That's why I'm a huge advocate of especially if I program a lift for a client, but it's also if I program a lift myself, it's to stay committed to that lift. So I'm not gonna do a snatch grip high pull, and then by week 4 it turns into a panda pull. And I'm like, no, it's still a high pull. No, that's not the same lift anymore. So it's
Yeah,
like,
you have to make sure there's a standard that you say I at least have to get it to my nipple line, let's say. And if it's below that, then I have no business touching that weight.
yeah. And I had people when I was really heavy on like the Silverback book, and had people like tagging me with hashtag Silverback, whatever. And like people were like doing high pulls. I'm like, man, like that's not a high pull. Like I said, high pull is nipple line to clavicle.
Yeah.
This range right here, and you're like hairs over your belly button. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
And
not.
without ducking down, that's an important distinction too.
Yeah. So when I was on a call with Herstevac, for example, he was talking about something called the trappy, which is something that Clockall was doing. And have you seen it?
No, but that's a funny name.
It's called trappy, yeah. And like, picture this: he would grab the barbell, collar to collar, so as wide as humanly possible, as wide as he's able to go.
Yeah.
His, I might be wrong. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it looks like it's like a constant. He goes like basically to like the clavicle.
Oh, it's he brings it up and then it doesn't even sit like at his hips for a while. It's just like one motion. Yes, I've seen that video. When I was learning how to do them, that's a video I came across.
But that's a good way to standardize it. But the thing is, like some guys, I know there's be some people online who literally like hit their chin, and it's like it's not our problem. You're not doing it properly, but it could be dangerous for some people too. You know.
Yeah.
It does lend itself to a lot of cheating. I think
sure.
if people want to get yoked, a really good lift is the snatch grip block
Pull. Yeah.
from like mid shin. You can't go wrong. You got it or you didn't.
Because yeah, exactly. It's easily standardized. You're still getting the effects of being in a snatch grip.
Yeah.
And you're getting the effects of, like, let's say a deadlift where it's pulling on your traps the whole way and you have to resist that. So that would be better for most people that aren't able to like self-standardize themselves, let's say.
Let's say they're already doing like a regular deadlift and they're not really with the snatch grip stuff. Well, for deadlifts, one I really like is the snatch grip shrug.
Okay.
Lean forward very slightly. So obviously you
Yep.
have endurance, you know what I mean? And it's like it's not rocket science. Like your shoulders touch close to your ears and they do it.
Yeah, there's no triple extension needed. There's nothing really. There's no technique essentially. It's just you shrug.
And if you power shrug, you just write in your program it's a power shrug. You just specify which variation it is. Anyways, I know I kind of hogged that one, but I wanted to see.
No.
I was curious about your, it's a discussion too. It's not just a Q&A.
Yeah, I had the same way. Like I find I can do 225 is a good weight for me. Like I rarely go over that. I remember one time just for shits and giggles, I'm like, let me just slap on 275 and see how that goes. And I remember just because my body was not used to that weight, I was like, holy crap, I didn't even get it to like my third rib because it was just a huge jump. I'm like, there's no way I can be like, oh yeah, these were overloaded high pulls. It's like, no, like I'm comfortable doing the 225. It gets me the results I want and it gets to the end range of motion that I want. So I've really never gone over 225 when it comes to high pulls with snatch grip specifically. And I don't know about you, I like the snatch grip so much. I've tried to do regular high pulls. They don't have nearly the same feel or effect.
No. The snatch grip stuff, man, it's I've had subscribers send me like I've had people send me the funniest theories behind the snatch grip stuff. I don't think it's like anything magical. I've had people send me like, man, like the snatch grip, it changes your bone structure, man. Like
it's like pulling your clavicles apart.
Yeah, like it's like it tugs on the traps like in a horizontal fashion, and like I'm like, nah, man, it's not magical, but I will say it does have a different tug on the traps on the way down. The upper back has to work harder in some ways, and
yeah, that's all it is.
I don't think it's magic, man, but I think it's effective, you know.
No, it's definitely effective.
And definitely somebody who's not pulling a lot of weight, snatch grip on anything snatch grip, they're not going to be as jacked as somebody who's doing a clean grip on lifts, but he's going balls to a wall and getting really strong, you know. So it's like, I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make regarding like the whole yoke. You got a lot of novices, they want to specialize in yokes, and like I think it's important you want to be at bigger traps, but I know we were speaking about this before. with the team 3D team Megan.
Yeah.
Like he has some interesting stuff too, you know. But he, like I said before this conversation, like he had this one video, man, and I was watching it not long ago, and I agree with it big time, man. Like properly done rows with a full protraction and a full scapular retraction, especially like on a chest supported T-bar or like cambered bars or um, seal rows, you go really high. As long as you could get this retracted position, you know, and full protraction, like that could work wonders for your traps.
A lot of people forget about the full protraction.
Yeah, but and like if you pause the protraction, and you don't have to pause the top because it could be really hard with the resistance profile, but just get it here and pause here at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I think people would be really amazed at what it would do to their yoke without really having to think about their yoke because you're already doing rows.
Yeah.
I think rows are really underrated for yoke.
Yeah, because people think rows are for lats and that's it.
Or upper back or like just like mid back.
Yeah. Because people think shrug is traps and then anything backwards is just your mid back, your rhomboids, your lats, which is just wrong.
If people watching right now, if you take a second to literally do as much scapular retraction as possible, you can't tell me that this is not working your trap. Come on. So I think once I really started thinking about it, I'm like, man, like Megan's right. Like, how many deadlifts are you really doing during the week? A couple sets? How many shrugs? People don't even do shrugs. But some guys are still pretty yoked. But what a lot of people are doing is a lot of rows.
Yeah.
And if they're doing it in the way we're describing, they will get yoked.
Because I think everyone would agree with this. The frequency, intensity, and volume, you can do way more rows than you can do deadlifts.
Yeah, and if you throw in some chest supported stuff too.
Yep.
And that brings me on to like obviously, I'm not saying like just row and you're going to get yoked. Obviously, I add in some trap work and obviously you got to be deadlifting, that's for sure. Pick a heavy deadlift variation and stick with it. But obviously a neck work, but that transitions to the next question, which is that neck product you're using.
The revolver?
Nah, the STRONGNECK.
Oh, the STRONGNECK. Yeah, honestly, I remember that has to be. And I talked to the guy about it, and he showed like I don't know if he's posted it, but he showed like the prototypes of what it originally was. Originally, it was just supposed to be almost like a kettlebell that sits on your head, and it was like curved. And then he had like 4 or 5 prototypes, and it gradually turned into what you see. So the STRONGNECK is essentially, it's got a foam pad, and it's just essentially, I think it's like a 4-inch maybe peg that you put on your head, and it completely eliminates the need for a towel or a toque when you put the weight on your head. And what's good is you can also stack multiple plates on it. But it's also like, it's not perfectly straight like a loading pin. It kind of bevels out like this a bit. So you have to put the weight on, like you have to like press it on, and it's not going anywhere. There's so many times where I actually have to like slap the peg out of my plate because it's so tightly in there, which with loading pins, I remember you and Alpha Destiny had a video years ago where it started sliding off the back. And I was like, that looks dangerous as fuck. Like if you don't have a partner there, that's giving you a zinger in your neck for sure. But what I like about this is anywhere past a 45-pound plate has been almost impossible to load. Because let's be honest, no one's jumping from a 45 to 90 pounds. You know what I mean? Like 90 pounds would be the next logical thing you can hold. And then once you're bending your head back, that takes a lot of grip strength to hold it into position. So, which is not a bad thing, but are you trying to train your neck or are you trying to train your hand strength? Everyone would say their neck at that point. So what I used to use a loading pin and I used to clamp it, but because of the design of the loading pin, it wouldn't exactly be a perfect fit. So the weights would still be moving all over the place. I get this jostling effect and it just wouldn't feel comfortable. Whereas with the STRONGNECK, it's very cheap. It's like $44.99. And you can eat, I've easily done 70 pounds. The weight doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. And the owner, Casey, has come up, I think a subscriber or a follower came up with this solution that it's not going to fit every single plate because every plate is machined slightly differently. So what you do, just get like a hand towel or even someone put a paper towel, you put it over and it will then make any plate fit perfectly. It's really good for the front work. It's good for the sides. It's good for back too if you're like lying down on a bench and going like this. I'm not a big fan of that because once you get to a 45-pound plate, it kind of hits your traps or your back or whatever. But if that's all you can do and you don't want to get a neck harness or you don't have one, that's a perfect. You can do all three ways of your neck. What's his name? Josh Bryant? Is that his name? Yeah, he's a big proponent of that. I'm actually the #1 seller of the Strong Neck. Casey told me people have used my code more than anyone. It's the Strength Classroom, by the way. It's really good. Like that's one thing. I'm not like I remember my girlfriend was talking to me about this. If a company sent me an energy drink, I would have a hard time advertising it just because I don't like energy drinks. Whereas with the Strong Neck, I have no problem telling people that's one of the best neck devices I've ever used. And it's a simple little thing. I honestly think it weighs 2 pounds. Like you can drop this thing and I think he said he's going to update it in a way. I can't remember what he said he was going to do. He was going to try putting a magnet inside of it so it holds the plates a little better. I don't know when he's planning on doing that, but it's lightweight, it's portable. It just neck flexion is like a dream now. You don't even feel like the weight's on your head, which I feel like maybe that would get in the way of some people because even when wearing a toque or a towel, you're still gonna kind of feel that ring on your head. I don't know if you've had that experience before, but because it's such a wide rectangle and it has foam, you barely even feel like the weight's on your head. So
you don't even have a hat at all. You literally
I never use a hat anymore.
Wow.
I only use a hat when I'm using a neck harness because obviously I have no hair, so it's like scraping up against my scalp. That's the only reason I'll use it for the neck harness. But if you don't have that issue, you would never even need to wear a toque for neck work again.
I think it's genius, man, and that's one of those.
Idea.
It's one of those why didn't I think of it first type things. You know?
I know, yeah, because I feel like everyone was like, oh, I'll just use a loading pin or something like that. But then you have to use a loading pin and do all this other stuff to it. Whereas I think he said it took him like 4 or 5 years to finally come up with this product, like the final design of it. But it was, yeah, it's definitely something.
It's very smart because remember we were talking about like movement options and some lifts just don't feel good to some people.
Yeah.
Like the neck extension, like even when my neck was its biggest, obviously a lot of it was fat and I was at a heavier body weight, but I was doing a lot of neck flexion and that was my bread and butter.
I feel like that's the one. Even I think Mike the Machine Bruce, you know who that is, right? He said when he first started wrestling, he didn't have a neck harness, so that's all he would do was neck flexion. And I feel like that's the best way to start because everyone will have access to a plate.
Yeah.
Essentially. But also I feel like that is what's going to give you the biggest neck from the front. Like you can see, like it'll give you like these lines right here, or that illusion of like surrounding your Adam's apple. Neck extensions are good. Side neck, what's your opinion on, I know you're supposed to be asking me questions, but what's your opinion on just like side neck in general? I would say it's important, but I would say it's the least important of the three.
Yeah, you know what's really funny about that, man? I was actually gonna make a video about this, probably still will. I think I might have like one YouTube video where I did side work, you know? But it's just like how so many different styles of training have their little drawbacks. You know, like kind of like the high pull has its thing, and like my biggest thing that would piss me off about neck training, especially like the front of my neck, I mean,
yeah,
my neck would be so stiff. It'd be like for days, man. Like, it's a cool soreness, and like you're putting on mass and you're building it, but like it almost felt like too stiff, you know?
True.
And I would stretch in different. I would do dynamic work before. I would do static stretching afterwards, days after, and like you're just sitting down editing videos, and you're like, man, my neck is just. It doesn't feel good. Like, doesn't feel like breathing feels that good.
For like days.
Like when it'd be short for like 2 days.
Okay.
Especially when you don't train it often, like man, it's short for like days off, like two sets of like 50 reps, you know. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that I recently made a big discovery where if I go out all out on like that neck curl, and then right after I take like some light weight and I just do like side flexion, I do side flexion the other way. Suddenly the neck, it's still pumped, It doesn't have the stiffness. So
Okay.
without doing any stretches, any of that. Just the fact that I guess it's kind of like when you do like unilateral work, you feel a bit more loose. If you do like split squats, I guess it's kind of like
True.
unilateral work for your neck.
Okay.
So it may give it more movement options, and it feels like, oh, okay, it feels chill now. But yeah, I think it's good for, in my personal experience, if you tend to have a really like tight neck,
Okay.
you finish off with the side neck work, man, and just like you're yoked, but you feel like you're mobile again, you know?
That's interesting. I never thought of it like that.
Just, yeah, I was really but at the same time, I haven't trained my neck in a while because um here's another thing. I find neck training is the most boring thing ever, by the way. I don't think it's not exciting at all.
That's true. Because like you can like how many variations are there really? Like you can get super fancy. I know like the what's it called? What's the one with the band? I even have it. I can't remember the name.
Not to say training has to be fun. You know what I'm saying?
No, but I know what you mean. It's very monotonous.
Yeah, but wrist curl is extremely boring. I just don't do it. And neck curls is just like, I find even shrugs are fucking boring, man.
Yeah.
You still gotta do it. They'll still get it done. Don't be lazy, but it's not like I'm not looking forward to do some shrugs. You know what I mean? But at the same time, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the loading was off. But with the strong neck, you can load it more. So now it's like it'll be fun again because it's like there's some kind of element progressing overload and not because keep in mind I had a video I saw Mike the Machine, he did like 200 reps on the neck curl.
That's crazy. I know, I saw that.
Yeah, so I came in, I'm like one day I'm like let me try to beat that. I think I got like 201, 207, something like that.
Nice.
Not to say it really matters anyways, because no one cares about the neck PR. And I was like on the road to a 21-inch neck or something like that. Like
wow, holy shit.
Yeah, like it's just like a really like important thing at the time.
Yeah.
And
did you ever make it?
Nah, not even.
What was the closest you got?
The closest I got was 230. Man, I have to write these measurements down, man. But the thing is, here's the thing about measurements, okay? I don't personally, whenever people tell me about their measurements, I always kind of roll my eyes because a lot of people measure wrong. Okay?
That's fair. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like it's like people they try to sell like it's like actors in Hollywood who lie about their height. You ever see that Vin Diesel and The Rock photo? Like they're not eye to eye.
No, The Rock's taller, no?
Way taller. So
Yeah.
it's like they use that to sell tickets, you know. It's kind of like people kind of do the same thing with their measurements. And like I see people like, oh, they're posing with their measuring tape, and it's like that tape is super loose.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
You know what I'm saying? That's not a snug measurement, and
yeah,
they're using these funky angles, and like it's very loose tape. So even if I were to say on camera what the measurement was, it doesn't matter because you would have to get an accurate measurement and to post it on socials or post it on YouTube. What you would basically have to do is take a video, not just a photo, and you would have to actually do a 360 of the tape. Because some people I could cut the tape. I could cut the tape if I want, and like
that's so true.
All these funky like tactics.
Or some people do this thing. I've seen someone was exposed. It was just some guy on Instagram, so it's not like he was a big YouTuber or whatever. The back part, he didn't even start it at 0. He started at like 2 or something like that. So with the measurement, he gave himself an extra 2 inches on his arms just by not starting it at 0. Like he let it hang below his arm.
Yeah.
But he didn't show that part. It's kind of like what you did with that guy. Remember, I can't remember his name. The guy that would hang all that funky shit.
We don't have to get into that, but like, yeah, I know what you mean.
But I remember you blew my mind with that video because I never thought anything. You just showed the camera angle, made a world of difference of how the video is actually perceived.
But you know what's funny? Before I made that video, actually, I was talking to Steve Pulcinella.
Okay.
And I was like, "What do you think about this?" And you know, he's like, he was on the same type of time I was on, no?
Okay.
Anyways, we don't have to get into that.
No. Yeah, it just reminded me when you said that.
What were we just talking about before? Yeah, with the measurements, right? So
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, it was like flexed neck. It was like a hair under 20, a hair. Like it was not.
Oh wow.
20, but it was a hair under.
That's pretty big.
Like my goal was to get the 60-inch shoulder measurement around when you do the lat flare and you put it around. I never hit that. I hit 59.5.
Still pretty big.
It was good, but at the same time, that doesn't matter because you have to have a 360 video, like I said, to have any kind of credibility. The same way if you could have a guy who's like, yeah, I bench 4 or 5, but it's like, are they calibrated plates? Are they like, or at least if you have a video of it, it's something. But
Yeah.
often some serious lifters like, hey, could you do it in competition? You know?
Yeah, that's a good point, because then all the reason they have calibrated plates so it's standardized for everyone. Like they all, like every powerlifting competition, I'm pretty sure uses like Alico calibrated standardized plates, just so everyone that's ever stepped on a platform is using the exact same weights, right?
Right. And the bar at the gym could weigh 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Right,
I remember when I used to work at a gym, I blew my friend's mind. I go, you know, all these 45s don't weigh the same amount. He's like, no, you're kidding. I'm like, well, I brought 6 to the scale. Some were 47, some were 42, some were 45. And he's like, oh, now how do I know which weights to use? I'm like, okay, well, I didn't tell you this to bring you so far down that rabbit hole, but I'm just letting you know, if you do 225 one week and it's a grinder, and then the next week you do 225 and can't get it, it's not because you got weaker. You might have got some plates that weighed more. It's just the name of the game when lifting in a public gym. There's nothing you could do about it, but
yeah,
it's just what happens.
when a competition, they notice how low their numbers really are.
Exactly.
And that's why some guys who hop on a stage in bodybuilding, they realize how little muscle mass they really have because they've been in a fluffy state all their life, you know?
Yeah.
People really underestimate how much, they overestimate how much, they think they have so much muscle than they
Because
think.
when people gain weight, they just assume, and they lift weights and eat like high protein diet or whatever, they just assume they've built nothing but muscle, which is just so far from the truth.
It's such a slow process, you know, especially at the point we're at. And but I'm cool with it. But I understand like right now I'm 200, and all I know is I do my week, just like how my clients have the weekly check-ins. I tell my clients, look, go in the same spot. You're gonna do a video. It could take 30 seconds, just front view, back view, side view, and then do the same thing, but flex everything in the body, flex your abs, arms, and then just throw it in the WhatsApp chat.
Yep.
You don't even have to watch it. But I do the same thing too.
Yeah.
So
once again, standardizing, right?
I standardize it, yeah. And I might actually start doing it with the ring light, so I could get real detailed every week. But anyways, all I know is the 200 that I'm at right now looks better and leaner than the 200 I was at before.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
fine.
totally understandable.
Up, so it's like, and I'm having fun doing it too, you know. Like, you want to do this long term, man, you got to be enjoying it somehow, you know.
Of course.
So, anyways, now we're kind of all over the place, but let's keep it moving, man. So, okay, let's talk bands or chains, man, because I know.
Okay, that's a good question for you.
Down the rabbit hole, but like, what's let's say you have a client, right? Like, when would you actually start programming bands and chains? Like, I know
not
the right for the. I believe people have to earn the right for bands and chains.
Yes.
I know guys bench 135, they throw chains on it, so like it's cool. They could do that if they want. But myself personally, like, I personally don't even program bands and chains, by the way. But let's just say like, and some people who have real like strength goals for like powerlifting, I might even just direct them to some other coach, you know, because I don't use bands and chains, you know.
Of course.
But at the same time, I'm personally under my philosophy is like, you got to earn your right to use that type of stuff, you know.
100%.
But
so when you say like, if I were to use them for me, what do I like better, bands or chains?
Yeah, you or Gen Pop clients.
Okay, so start out with me.
Yeah.
I would say I like bands, but you can definitely do chains for more weeks in a row than you can bands. Because bands give you like the exponential increase of weight as you're nearing the top, whereas chains, as it's moving, it's adding the same amount of weight. So bands are more stressful, in my opinion. So I do like bands. I like banded deadlifts a lot. I like bands and chains for squats. I prefer chains on bench press just because I find my transition point is the weak point in my bench. So I don't want the weight to get heavy so quick. I want to gradually push through the rep. So that's why I like chains on benching and pressing in general. When it comes to the average person, they definitely don't need to do bands or chains, and they need to have at least 4, maybe 5 years under their belt of like quality lifting for them to, not for them to, like you said, earn the right, but they can do it in year 1 if they want, but they won't even get to understand or feel the benefits of it. Because there's just not enough straight weight on the bar for them to even notice the difference.
But that's an important point right there. It's why. Do you know
exactly
you're doing what you're doing? Or let's say your coach programs it for the 135 bencher. Ask him why.
Yeah.
Get an answer. But like a lot of people, they're doing what looks cool, but they don't know why they're doing it. And I personally feel like when you know, I've had coaches, for example, program certain lifts for me, but I didn't really understand exactly why I was doing it. And I swear to God, it's less effective.
Yeah.
You know exactly the reason you're doing it,
the intent,
why it's programmed, and why it's sequenced, and why is this at like why are we doing this at the beginning of my workout when I could just do it at the end? Like why is it programmed here? And then you get a good explanation. You'll stick to the plan better, and you'll follow the process, man. You know?
Because even if you take that same 135-pound bencher, and they're like, oh, I want to use bands and chains, and you ask them to explain what rate of force development means, if they can't answer that question, they have no business using bands or chains, because that's what it came down to. Instead of using straight weight, the people at Westside were like, we'll take the same amount of weight, but only at the top, so that we could get more explosive. So instead of using 185 or 225, let's say, because they wouldn't be using 185, but 225 straight weight, we'll take off 90 pounds, replace that with bands or chains, and now we're getting a bigger pop, but we have to still accelerate because as the weight's moving, it's getting harder to do. But if you don't have enough straight weight on the bar, like I said, you're not even going to realize what benefits or maybe even lack thereof there's supposed to be. But like you said, people just want to do things that look cool. They see college football weight rooms, maybe NFL weight rooms using that stuff. They see The Rock draping chains around his shoulders doing dips and just think it looks cooler than normal weights. But are they benefiting from it? Negligible, but I lean to the side of probably not.
Yeah, well, The Rock was using it for it wasn't off the ground like a bench.
No, it was around his neck, right?
Like yeah, in that case, it's kind of just that's just something that looks cool.
Yeah,
it makes your traps look like whatever. But
have you ever tried those, like around the neck?
No, not
They feel so uncomfortable because when you're if you have big traps, when they're retracting, it's literally jamming the chain into the back of your neck, and it's not comfortable at all.
That lift is done purely because it looks badass.
Exactly.
But it's not. You could easily have just hung those chains on a. Okay.
You can literally just tie it around your waist, and it'll have the exact same feel.
But then again, if every chain weighs like 23, and you have two 23-pound chains.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to like load that, micro load it?
Yeah. You can't jump 23 pounds.
Just purely entertainment, you know?
Exactly.
But let's say, for example, the way I personally do the band chain thing is like, let's just say somebody gets their first three-plate bench with purely straight sets, using none of these fancy things. And let's say from the three-plate bench takes them a couple of years, now they're at 365. And now they have in the back pocket some tools they've never touched before. You know what I'm saying? So It's like it must be a good feeling knowing like
new stimulus
point without any of that extra stuff. And then you could get with the right coach, you could program, because there's certain coaches who I followed a while back, and like they're at certain points in certain lifters' careers, they'll be like, have you experimented with bands? And like, have you experimented with, you know? They didn't say that to me. They said to like guys I was watching, and like that could be a good way to break plateaus, you know?
You know what's a thing why for the general population, why I prefer chains over bands? Chains, you just have to hook up to the bar. Bands, you have to make sure you're hooking it up to the bar the exact same way every single time, or you're getting different band tension every time you're using it.
Big time.
Because I've noticed sometimes if I don't want to hop up to a new band, like from a red to a black, all I have to do is get my band pegs on the rack, and instead of having them 2 pegs apart, 3 pegs apart, and I set it up the exact same way, but there's more tension because it's slightly more apart. Whereas a beginner would just be like, oh, I'm just going to hook these up, and maybe they're go from one gym to the next, or sometimes they lift at home and then they lift in a public gym. The tension will be totally different. Whereas chains, you just make sure you hook them up to the bar, and it's going to be the exact same tension every time.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. Like there's more of a setting up component when it comes to the bands, for sure.
Like we said, standardization. It seems to be a theme of what we're saying.
Yeah, some people don't have the patience too, man, to honestly like hook up these bands. And
Yeah,
depends how serious you are too, you know?
of course.
Yes, we're going through these questions. So let's talk like injury history, man. Like on your journey, have you had any injuries, for instance, that
The only major injury I would actually, there's been two. One more, they're both pretty annoying. Nothing like where I had to get surgery or anything like that. Um, I think it was 2017. I can't remember who I saw do them, but I've never done a stiff legged deadlift since. Well, this type of stiff legged deadlift. I was doing them like on a platform with basically straight legs. And I think I had like 275 on the bar, maybe even 315. And I got to the bottom. Next thing I know, my left knee is giving out and I'm just putting the weight on the floor. And I ripped my hamstring. It was like a grade 2 tear. And thank God it wasn't a complete rupture, but it wasn't painful in a way. Well, it was, but it wasn't like I was screaming in pain. I just knew something was wrong because that's not supposed to happen. I got
sorry, you pulled off a higher deficit than usual, you said?
It was like a 2 inch deficit, but the problem, I wasn't doing stiff legs where like there was a slight bend in my leg. It was essentially a straight leg, like completely locked out leg
Okay, got you.
to get like, I don't know, 2% more hamstring activation with the risk of tearing your hamstring, right? It was one of those stupid things. And I don't know what happened. It was about maybe a year ago. I don't know if I heard it working out or I slept wrong or maybe a combination of both. Something in my right shoulder, it just felt super uncomfortable. And I don't even know what it was. My friend's a physiotherapist. He kind of diagnosed me, says it doesn't seem like it's anything rotator cuff related, but I've just made sure that I've got my shoulders like more mobile over time. You probably see in my videos, I use like a lot of club bells and just make sure I'm not super stiff. But that one's a mystery to me because nothing happened like the tore hamstring where, like, let's say I felt it right away and had to put the weight down. It was nothing like that. So I don't actually even know what happened. It could have just been one of those minor things, and because like the blood was flowing and I was warm, I couldn't actually tell it happened. But those are really the only two lifting injuries I've had specifically from lifting weights. I did have I guess a QL strain a couple of months ago. I remember feeling it during my workout, but it wasn't too bad. And then I was at jujitsu and someone just pulled me in a way where I guess I didn't want to be pulled. And I remember I got home at like 10:30. I woke up in the middle of the night with some pain and I checked my alarm clock. It was like 2 hours after I came home and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't even sleep. Then I got some stretches. I've been doing some things for my QL just that because that's an exercise no one works out. Or sorry, a muscle no one works out. Like I've been doing these things. I call them rotating deadlifts, where you have a kettlebell and you like turn to the side. I think I saw Donnie Thompson doing them.
Right.
I did this thing yesterday. I don't know if I uploaded it yet. I think I did, where I sit on the floor holding a kettlebell and I like butt scoot backwards while I'm lying with my feet straight out. And what's happening is your pelvis is actually moving in and out and it's contracting and like, I guess, an eccentric with your QL. But it's just, I don't know. I think everyone has that like little lessons where you like nag something and then make sure that never happens again. So it's like the whole prehab rehab thing.
I hear you. I think injuries, I think every coach benefits from it because one, it's good content,
Yep,
tons of good ideas for videos, and it could build some kind of compassion for people when they come to you with that same type of injury.
of course.
So it's good content, but also yeah, like I've had so much stuff happen to me, man, and yeah, it's a lot of content, man, and it's
Yeah.
a lot of quality questions you could ask the quality coaches. You get good responses, man. You could just build your toolbox up. I like those Cossacks you do, man. I have a lot of
Yeah,
clients.
those are good.
Yeah, a lot of my clients do those for prep work, like especially
Yeah.
people who have like big hip shifts. I find they're really bang for your buck, and it's like it's very dynamic, so loosens up the hips. Like you're checking off so many boxes with that, and if they're too
Of
heavy,
course.
then just make them hold onto a pole and just
Yeah,
do it.
that's a
You know?
great regression for it. You just have them hold on to something.
Yeah, bang for your buck, man. But like ultimately speaking, too, like a lot of these smaller drills, like a Cossack squat, like they improve movement options like crazy, man. Because like a lot of times you start lifting heavier, you start walking like a penguin, especially like you start
Yeah.
lifting heavier. Like people say you look like a fridge, and it's like people like it's like a meathead like badge of honor, like, but it's not that good either. Like you still
No.
somewhat mobile, you know? And like I feel like a lift like a Cossack squat or like those club bells you use, like a
Yeah.
rotational deadlift. Like some people like don't do any of that, you know, and like even like unilateral work for some people, it's like they're like some people just do way too much bilateral work,
Yeah.
and some people can get away with it. But then some of those same people will do like sports too, so they could explore other movement options
Exactly. Yep.
too, you know. But like I played, for example, I was like up north and I played badminton today, and like I think the last time I played badminton, man, and did like a lateral sport, I played basketball. Obviously, I have a basketball background, but like pure lateral sport like badminton must have been like 20 years ago, man.
Oh
So
wow.
and it's like you really start to realize, like, man, like I'm not good at this at all. Like this weightlifting stuff doesn't carry over to this at all, you know?
Yeah.
Which is okay, I didn't expect it to, but like you feel like you're playing Twister, man, because you're in all these like weird positions.
You're being forced into positions you're just not used to.
Not at all, man. It's just I think it's important, man. I think conditioning is very important too. Um, I really like respect a lot of coaches who talk highly about like GPP, you know? I
Yeah.
think it's
That's
important.
very, very underrated.
I think that's one thing I really give props to strongman for, man. I think they really nailed the GPP stuff, and I think
Yeah.
it really inspired a lot of like heavier guys, especially to like you don't have to go on a treadmill, but like you know carry this sandbag, do your farmer's
Yeah.
walk, pull this sled. I think sled pulls, man, super underrated.
Yeah. That's one thing that I feel like Westside Barbell really got right
Them too.
was pulling a sled. Like, cause think about it, they're powerlifters. When does a powerlifter ever need to do something like that? But it just raises up your overall condition, and then you can do more work in the gym, essentially.
Yeah, especially like random topic, but like people who have like knee issues, like
Yeah,
I had
especially the backward ones.
big time, yeah. Reverse
Yeah,
sled drags, man. Like I had when I had my ACL surgery, for instance. If I would have known about like iso holds and like just very specific tools, man. The power of adductors,
yeah,
reverse sled drags, like my knee would have recovered way faster, man. But like those reverse sled drags, man, like the heel contact you get and like the reverse
yes,
motion, like it's so important, man. And it's so easy on the knees too. And some people who have like trouble with like leg extensions, which I don't demonize the leg extension at all. I think it's a very powerful exercise. But the reverse leg drag, man, it kind of is a leg extension.
essentially, yeah, because you're pulling back your ankle behind your knee and then extending out in front of you.
Concentric only. But
Yep.
okay, so I see like you got like some old school lifting stuff going. Like for sure you got some old school aspirations, man. Like
Yeah.
some guys you follow like old school. But what are some books you'd recommend to like the meatheads watching, man? If there are any. Someone who's
Um,
lifting, man. Like, are there any books you could like recommend?
I've read. It's funny. I remember reading in Gym Wonders 531 that he said, regardless of what you think, everyone should read Starting Strength by Mark Ripito. I've never read that book, nor have I ever done Starting Strength. I feel like everyone did Starting Strength. I never once did it. I guess I can secondhand recommend that if a lot of people think it's a good starting place for people. The West Side Book of Methods, I've read through some of it. It's too funky for even my liking, and I love West Side things. Like it's just too much, and it seems outdated as well.
Really?
Yeah. I read a book, I can't remember who it's by, called Super Training.
Yeah.
I can't remember the author. I read that. I would recommend that. Um, Josh Bryan had a power building book
Yeah. It's a
that
good
was
one.
pretty good. I had that one. Also, I read this, but more so an ebook, not an actual book, but it was something by Grayskull. It was like Grayskull 5x5. They had a program, but they also had an ebook talking about conditioning, not just being big and strong, but being able to move as well. I think the guy was a former military person.
Never
Um,
heard. No.
that's a good book. Yeah, really, when it comes to training, I've more so instead of books, I've more so read articles and kind of drawn my conclusion from that. Just because I find the articles would be more digestible. It's about one topic. You can take something away from it quickly, whereas a book, you need to invest time, like over time, to read. And it's going to be about a bunch of different things. So I find like most of the knowledge is either trying something myself or then seeing something and trying it myself. So with actual books, I don't really know if there are any I can recommend other than the ones I said I've peeked into.
You're a podcast guy? Like you listen to?
No, not really. I've watched a couple episodes of Mark Bell's podcast, depending on who the host is. I watched the one that I actually watched from start to finish. I think it was two of them. He appeared on it twice. Was Matt Wenning appeared on it twice. He's pretty good wealth of knowledge. I'd say like someone to listen to. He does have some ideas that sound wacky, but then when you try them, they do pretty much work. But it all depends on the situation. Like for example, his winning warm-ups, I used to be a fan of them at one point, then I wasn't, and now I'm not again. But it's all individual, like how you feel like warming up. Anything that gets your body ready. Mark Bell has a pretty good podcast, I would say. If any of them that I've watched, I don't want to say it religiously, but semi-consistently, it'd be that one. He even had Dave Hoff on it, and I don't give a shit about geared lifting, but I really enjoyed watching that one.
You look like the type of guy who watches like a lot of Elite FTS.
I remember back in the day, that was one of my websites that I would go to a lot for information. But the problem was back then, they never really, and I guess it's up to the reader to figure this out, they never really differentiated things between geared and raw. So for example, the geared benching thing that I learned from didn't say it was for geared benching. It just said how to bench press. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm going to do exactly what this video says, but it led me down the wrong path for sure.
It's funny because with the geared powerlifting, like even if you're raw, it's still badass to watch, man. You know, like I watch Westside Rip the World, man. It's super entertaining, man. Like
that was a good documentary.
I'm willing to bet most people who watch that are raw too, you know?
Oh, for sure. Because in this day and age, like who does geared powerlifting? Like the average person. Like you don't get into it to do geared powerlifting.
I don't know anybody who does geared powerlifting.
Unless you were lifting at a gym that already had that culture. Like I could see if you were like a former West Side member who now has their own gym. I can't remember this guy's name, but his Instagram is Trigger Warning Conjugate.
Okay.
I can't remember if he was in West Side versus the World or he was in another like mini Vice documentary about West Side, and he's in that. And he still does geared powerlifting because he joined when he was like 22 at West Side. So that's going to still be in his culture. Now, whoever comes to his gym does geared powerlifting, but no one goes to like Good Life Fitness or wherever. It's like, yeah, I'm training for geared powerlifting. Like no one does that.
Super niche.
Yeah, but plus you need to bring 5 spotters with you. So how could you?
Yeah, no, at that point you're training at like a geared powerlifting gym and like
exactly
you got a team with you and you got practices and it's not okay. So as far as like the home gym, this is a big one right here. Like I know you've done a lot of like I think I'm pretty sure it's either we spoke about it or you posted it in like a story where you're like I'd rather train calisthenics in the park than train like a commercial gym. You know?
Oh, I can't. And
the commercial, no.
The reason it starts off like that, I specifically remember. People always try and remember when Instagram came out. I know exactly when Instagram came out. It came out very early, 2012, because I remember that January, my university gym was way busier than normal, like to the point where I'm deadlifting and people are almost walking into me because social media just made fitness like explode. And I remember in January, I'm like, what? It's February. Why have 75% of these people not disappeared yet? So I had a really bitter public gym experience with that. And even like when I went to York University, like so many people will complain about deadlifting. They're like, there's offices underneath the gym. Well, who built offices underneath the gym? Like, that's just stupid. So like, there were all these little rules that I didn't want to have to follow. So for a while I was lifting, it was on campus at the Toronto Track and Field Center. And it was just super old school. Like these were weights that like Ben Johnson used. I actually met Ben Johnson like 10 to 15 times. He was there training people. They had like, it was just super old school. Like it was those dumbbells that were like bolted on. They went up to like 150 or something like that. The only thing was this place had no air conditioning. So whatever temperature it was outside, that's what it was in there, but there was no breeze with the wind. So it was like a super old school gym. I would be sweating buckets. And then I'm like, I didn't exactly like that. So I'm like, why don't I just slowly put together a home gym? So I started off with a rack, a platform, adjustable dumbbells, and a bar, and then just slowly added things over time to what you see I have now. I feel like my home gym, and one of my friends agreed with it, it's like one of the best practical home gyms without being obnoxious. Like my rack is just a standard. It doesn't have a super big blueprint. It's not one of those like 12 post racks with like 1,000 attachments hanging off it. Like that, to me, some people have these home gyms, but it's like, you don't have a home gym. You basically have a CrossFit box in your garage because you have so much extra equipment where, yes, sure, it's a gym in your home, but it's just obnoxious with the amount of things that are like hanging off your rack.
I hear you. But you have a nice home gym, man. I've seen your stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty nice without being obnoxious, like I said.
Right. I think some people, they buy stuff. I think I think a lot of home gym owners could relate to this, where it's more of like a collection, especially like during the
COVID?
during COVID, man. Like a part of me was just collecting stuff, man. I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm like I could understand when people were like at first I'm like I'm just gonna get this stuff and that's it, that's all. And
Yeah.
then later I have like other pieces I never thought I'd get. And I'm like, interesting, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember I had this one buddy of mine who, Simon, shout out to him, man. He actually found a 60-pound globe dumbbell on the street next to garbage. And he
That's
just
pretty cool.
grabbed it and he ran home with it, you
Wait,
know?
you have it now.
Yeah, I bought
I
it
was
off.
gonna say you have a globe
Bought it,
dumbbell. Yeah,
but like, yeah, that's probably the only like antique iron I got, you know what I'm
that's
saying?
pretty cool. That's like
But
something like Eugene Sandow would use.
yeah, and that's actually something I wouldn't even. I actually put it on Marketplace, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna sell it, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's pretty cool
Yeah,
to have.
give me, man. I'm keeping that. You know, it's just too badass. It's just like
Yeah,
it's not like a like I've seen on Marketplace. There's like 5-pound globe dumbbells.
it's not the same. When they're bigger, it's cooler.
Yeah, but no, but what I'm saying is like the gym you have is nice, man. Like, you didn't go overboard.
Mm.
And I think it's a good, to all the people watching still, it's a good representation of like realistically, like if you have a home gym, do it yourself stuff,
Yeah,
and you know what you could expect from like basically the home gym experience without like over glorifying it. Like it's just down raw and just this is what it is, you know.
of course.
As far as like someone who has like that home gym experience, and I know you've done like so many do it yourself videos, and I know you
Yeah,
probably have like a laundry list of new do it yourself videos you're gonna make.
yeah.
But what's something that you just find that you just cannot replicate at a home gym from in a commercial gym? Because I'll speak for myself quick first. The seated ham curl, man, and the seated adductor machine. It's hard, man.
Yeah. Okay. So you're right. The seated hamstring curl, like you can use bands. I use glute ham raises, but you can't really say that's a substitute because glute ham raises are infinitely harder than a seated ham curl because you can load up a seated ham curl comfortably, whereas there's some people that can't even do one glute ham raise. So the difficulty, you can't say, oh, I used to do seated ham curls at my gym, but now I have a home gym and the only thing I can do is glute ham raise. But if you can't do one glute ham raise, then you can't do seated ham curls, right? And then when you have bands, the strength curve is just not the same. You can try to replicate it, and I do it sometimes. I do it just like at the end of my workouts, just like pump up my hamstrings. But is it close to a hamstring curl machine? Probably not, just because, like I said, the strength curve is completely different. The adductor machine, you're right, that's completely different. I do these things called Copenhagen's. I don't know if you've ever seen them. Yeah,
it's
but
not the same though. It's not.
They're good for adductors in general, but it's not similar. The only way it's similar to a machine at the gym is that you're working the same muscle. Is it the same motor pattern? No. One thing that's actually really hard, but this is just because of the height of my rack, is lat pull downs. I have a cable machine, but because of the height of my rack, I have to do them like sitting down on the floor. So I have nothing anchoring me down. I could have something anchoring me down, but then it takes me so long to set up for something as minor as a lat pull down, right? Leg press, I have the belt squat attachment. It's somewhat similar,
Right.
but not exactly the same.
You're still making a crap load of gains, man.
Of course, yeah, exactly. So it's not like there's never been something that I've really missed at a public gym, because I feel like when I first started, I just had dumbbells, barbells, and a rack. So I had to always come up with all these things. Like that's how I came up with the belt squat machine. I was like, there's no way I'm paying like $7,000 for Matt Wenning's machine. First of all, if it gets into my basement, it's never leaving because that thing weighs so much. So I'm like, there has to be a way I could come up with it, because I'm like, I don't like the dangling kettlebells. I don't like the band version. And then it just hit me one day. I'm like, why don't I just do one side of the barbell? And that was enough. And then one day I'm just like, I'm tired of setting this thing up over and over again. So I bought the Revolt Fitness arm for belt squats. And I find like that kind of mimics what I was looking for. But yeah, like I said, there's nothing I've been like, damn, I wish I had this, because I have a chest supported row pad now. I have specialty bars for like good mornings and whatever. But for the average person, there will be trouble doing, like you said, adductors, lat pull down, seated, or even lying hamstring. It's even harder than seated hamstring.
Yeah, lying is yeah, well, that's the thing. The lying always felt like absolute crap to me, Like I got like one leg that's like a little long. Anyways,
Okay.
I'm not again.
Yeah.
But seated always felt amazing. The external stability I got from the machine, amazing. Some gyms I've been to, man, like I don't know what kind of bodybuilders are using these seated leg curl machines, man. But there's like a gap. You jack it down to the lowest for the thigh pad, and there's still like a bit of room left.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's why even when you go to commercial gyms, it's so funny. Even when you go to some of these commercial gyms, you still have to bring some of your own stuff. I bring like a little like an Eric's pad, stuff it under the seat, under the thigh pad, and I'm jammed in.
To like modify it to your anatomy type of thing.
Yeah, I'm locked in like crazy, man. And like I just have like all the stability I need. And all I have to do is just bring the heels back and just toast the hamstrings, But that did bother me about like home gyms. But at the same time, it's nice to have channels like yours because you could still see the perspective of it.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say, man, is there's still tons of benefits. Like in Montreal, for example, we have like a Econo Fitness. It's like a $10 gym. That's not the only gym we have, obviously. But like I'm saying
Okay.
like low end, Econo is like $12 a month.
Yeah, here is like I don't know if you have it in Quebec, but Good Life owns it. It's called,
I know which one you're talking about.
24/7 Fitness or something like that, and it's like $15 a month, but they don't have everything, but it's like it's like a low bottom level gym essentially.
But here's what I'm trying to say. Like I got some clients online who live in Montreal. Some of them just can't like afford, or they're just too far from the gym that I'm at.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, go to like an Econo or like a BuzzFit or like something like that in your area. And it's crazy because I basically like to compare machines in the gym to cars, right? I think there's a big parallel between the two. And I think like some of these old school cars, super badass, and some of these old school machines, they just have a certain profile and they have a certain feeling that like new machines don't have. But to the naked eye, to someone who doesn't really know like gym machines, like hack squats and whatever, and they walk into a gym, they're taking this for granted. But it's like that hack squat machine costs like $4,000.
Yeah. And
the movers to get it shipped into the gym, the tax, the time to build it, whatever the case is, the time to ship it, whatever, like probably like $5,000 of work.
Yeah.
And like, you're just walking back past it and like you don't even know. Like even if like I'm not coaching them, just like an average Joe, like they don't know how good they really have it at these commercial gyms, Like you don't have to work for any of this stuff. You don't have to move any of it in. It's already built for you. You don't have to have a home gym where you have to do it yourself. So there's pros and cons to both, And I think it really depends on your personality type. I think some people who just don't want to just be around people all the time. They don't want to have to wait for equipment. There's certain drawbacks, And you want to blast your own music. You don't want to have headphones in. There's a lot of pros. So I think that the big factor that's gonna make or break the home gym or commercial gym is just what kind of style you like,
Yeah. Well, I will say my friend, he's bought and sold a home gym. It was like 2 or 3 times. I can't remember, because he just kept changing his mind. But one of the biggest things he didn't like was that he could not easily switch from exercise to exercise. Like he's like, I like just pulling dumbbells off the rack. I don't like having an adjustable dumbbell and have to adjust it every time. He liked like when you're done a machine, you just take off the plates and move on. Whereas opposed to you might have to like re-rig your whole rack to do an exercise. It could be, depending on what you're trying to do, it could, if you only have one barbell and you want to superset, I don't know, bench press with barbell row, kind of next to impossible unless you want to do the same weight on both. So there definitely are I'm not saying a home gym is a dream for everyone, but if you're already in that mindset, it could be a good option.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think I've seen in your videos, like you have people over.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a lifting partner, for example?
No.
No? Okay.
I at a certain point, it was during like the first lockdown, I did have someone who I used to train when I worked at the gym, and he would just come over. We'd spend like basically the whole day together, and lifting was one of the things we did like 3-4 times a week.
Yeah, it's badass. It's still badass still. Like even sometimes when I'm on Marketplace, man, and most of my situation, I basically brought a lot of my stuff to
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, so there's just too much stuff to have in my new place, so I'm just like I couldn't put it in the storage room, you know. It's just might as well put it in the gym and let the community,
of course,
as well. Like people ask, can I use them? Like, yeah, I use it, just put it back, you know.
Yeah.
And like you walk into the gym I'm at now, and it's like basically most of the stuff that's in the back is my equipment.
That's cool.
I have like a really nice arrangement with the gym, and I'll oftentimes like I still have some equipment I'm still bringing till this day.
Wow.
Just drop some sandbags in, like, and like it's nice for everybody else to use it, and you do feel like you're kind of giving back to the community, if you will. Even though like when I want to take all my equipment back and leave, I could do that. At the same time, like for the time being, people could use it, you know. But anyways, yeah, to the guys watching up to this point, man, like this is basically what you could expect from, you know, having a home gym. You know, this is the Strength Classroom. If you guys haven't followed, subscribe to this channel by now, do so. We're really running through the questions, man. I got one more, and then we'll finish by the finishing thoughts, man. But what got you into like the fighting? Because I've seen a lot of lifters, man, and they seem to like hit this point where they're like, I gotta get into like this fighting, you know? But tell us about that.
It wasn't so much like martial arts or whatever. It was just something that I found. It's not that lifting was becoming boring, but I find like I was lifting for the sake of lifting.
Okay.
And I'm like, I think I need something where I can like train for. That's like completely foreign to lifting, completely foreign to anything I've done. And I remember I just floated it by my girlfriend one day, and she got me like a 1-month pass to a gym that's just around the corner. And then I tried it. I liked it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sound like it's been paradise. I think I've come home maybe like 30 times going like, fuck this shit, I'm quitting, I suck. It's pretty hard, I'm not going to lie. But it just felt, because when you lift weights, it's very individualistic, where it's just you versus yourself, right? And I feel like I was wanting something where I can like test myself against someone else, essentially. And I feel like, because it's more dynamic, more random, because the weight, when you have weight on the bar, it doesn't change throughout the set, right? So it's something that, and I do know a lot of lifters somehow gravitate over to jiu-jitsu. I don't even know who started that like natural trend to it, because the people on YouTube, it seems like when a channel's getting stale, all of a sudden that person goes into jiu-jitsu, which is hilarious because that's not even why I did it. It was just something that I wanted to try. It was either going to be that or kickboxing, and then like I said, she got me the pass to the gym, and then I've been going for about, I guess I started in January, so August, so almost 9 months. And it's funny. Someone explained this to me. I don't know if you knew this, but apparently if you roll with someone in jiu-jitsu and they tell you you're strong, apparently that's a backhanded compliment, because jiu-jitsu is all about the smaller guy being able to neutralize the bigger guy. But so many people have said to me, and this is how I found it out, they said, you know, you're really strong, and I mean that in the serious way. And then I was like, what do you mean? And then they explained that to me. So being strong is the only reason I haven't come home mangled half the time, because some of these people, they're like 70 pounds lighter than me, but they they don't feel like they're 70 pounds lighter than me, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So and that's another reason why I started doing a lot more different things like the clubs and the maces and the more mobility work and whatever, because you have to have, my back was always so programmed to be stiff under load or under movement, just from that's what you want to be in deadlift, squats, anything where you have to brace. But I've had to learn how to brace while being dynamic at the same time. So that's why you see me do things like the Jefferson curls, and I don't think I have any videos, but I do like the toes to bar to really like make yourself more flexible. And it's not like I'm super limber right now, but I'm definitely more flexible than when I first started, because unlike lifting, you're being forced into positions that you might not normally put yourself into. So like I said, it's just something that I feel like I needed something to give me like a spark, a boost, something to train for. Because when you're 32 like me, it's not like I'm gonna go play recreation basketball or something like that. It had to be something that was completely foreign to me, and this just happened to be it.
Did you play basketball or?
No, I just brought that. It just came
Okay.
into my head. Yeah, yeah.
No, I think that's badass, man. I think the movement option gains you're gonna make too, the bare minimum.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're
Like
probably
even
in areas you've never been sore in and just
Yeah, like even when you wear like the gi, I remember after like my second class, I'm like, I'm used to doing stuff for my grip, but normally I feel it in my forearms. Here, like I'm feeling it in my hands and my fingers. It's a grip in a totally different way. And like we do these things like you front roll and back roll, and at the beginning I was just like flopping around like a fish. Never did I think I'd be able to do that in my life.
so funny,
Like
man.
it's just a completely different movement style.
On a side note, man, one of my biggest pet peeves, man, is when people say like, I get this all the time, but like, man, like you're benching that, like if you take that force and you put it in a punch, I'm like, you do know it's like completely different, right? Like
It's so different.
it's so much different, man. Like
Well,
powerlifters would be like the top
oh yeah,
years. And what's it called? I've seen fighters on the bench who struggle with like 185.
yeah.
Like they get buried under it, but they would destroy you in a fight.
Because well, think about it. Do you ever punch with two hands at once? So, but that's what a bench is, right? You have to coordinate both your arms at the same time while having your upper back solid. It's totally different.
I always found that argument so funny, man.
Well, even
Simplicity, you know?
do you know who Bradley Martin is?
Of course.
Okay, so he's been like challenging like boxers and UFC fighters, just thinking that he's bigger than them, he'll win. And someone just did like a huge breakdown on it, and he said that exact thing. He's like, if you are whatever you practice in, you're going to be good at. If you happen to be able to fight better than someone, that might just be a fluke. But you can't say that because I'm bigger and stronger, it's going to translate into like slamming and grappling and punching and kicking. It's specificity of sport. That's all it comes down to.
I wish more people knew that though, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people, maybe it comes from like superheroes and cartoons and stuff like that. They're just muscular, so people just assume in real life if they're really muscular, they'll be the toughest person. I don't know. I don't know where that mentality comes from.
The most I would say is like, look, if you do like there's some like okay, if we're talking about like good carryover, I would say if you do strongman and like for example, when I was doing there were periods of my lifting where I was like really into sandbag training, for example, and like just awkward ass objects. And coincidentally, people would ask me if it would be summertime, and people would be like, "Hey Phil, 230s, 230. We moving jobs are just around the corner," and I was just the guy to call for all the moving jobs. And like I was good at that. So like couches, little
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fridges, whatever, and like obviously not alone, like with people, but like there's in that regard, there's a lot of carryover.
Because the movement's awkward and it's like in all three planes at once type of thing.
Yeah, it's like a sandbag, and if you deadlift it up, like it's or you're hugging it, or like or you have constraints, like you're holding onto a stair, and
Yeah.
I'm saying so in that regard, like I do agree that like it has good carryover for sure. But like firefighters, you see how some of those firefighters train? Some of them have some type of strongman-ish
Yeah.
lifting, you know?
Yeah, they'll have
So
like a tire or they'll have bumper plates and stuff like that. Like you won't see like a traditional gym inside the firehouse. It'll be more of like a quote unquote functional
got you,
type
yeah.
of looking gym.
But even like we do take fighting, like I don't think if somebody Zercher squats a lot of weight that they're gonna automatically be a good fighter. Like
It will carry
or to some
over
extent,
to
but maybe it
things.
depends what kind of fighting we're talking about though.
Yeah, it'll carry like there's an article I read on Elite FTS when it comes to grapplers. This guy does nothing but safety squat bar work and Zercher work for his squats. He doesn't do anything. He does no traditional back squats. He doesn't even do front squats, just because he says that carries over best to what he's doing. But you can't tell me, oh, I can Zercher 500 pounds, practice no skills whatsoever, and be like, I'm going to be a good grappler. Like it just in what other avenue of life would you be able to do something and be like, that's going to automatically make me good at this other skill? But if you don't practice the other skill, you're not going to be good at it.
That's what I meant to say. Like you have to do the thing.
Exactly.
And the other stuff is more like, just like how a basket, like for example, I saw this was years ago, man, and this one always cracked me up. Like you see Michael Jordan and he's doing like the 45s in the incline, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden all the meatheads come in the comment section, they're like, oh, it's like, yeah, you know better, eh?
That's funny.
Johnny's doing the 55s. Oh, wow. Like he's not training for that, man. He's probably doing sets of 30. First, you don't know how many reps he's doing, but like he's probably doing it as a form of conditioning and like some circuit passion or
Yeah.
but you gotta do the thing to get good at
Like
the thing.
he's not doing them to be a better incline dumbbell bench presser. Put it
Oh,
that way.
and when you saw recently there was some footage that leaked of LeBron,
LeBron James, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
not his box squat. That was a while back. This was on
Oh,
his this was in the warm-up room, and before that he was doing some it's like some yoga ball circuit, man. Like his knees were on a yoga ball and he was doing like some balancing drill.
okay.
And like he's doing all these yoga ball drills and like that's not what made LeBron, you know?
No, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That's just if anything, and then my buddy Tyler, he took the same biomechanics course and he made a post about it. He's like, man, like if anything's gonna prep for LeBron more, it'd be like there's like 2 Chainz playing in the background and he just hits a crazy shot. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not the people he got good at the sport because he specialized in the sport.
Yeah.
And obviously like he has like the weightlifting coach, the coaches for training, but that's not the bread and butter of his success.
Yeah. Because also I remember Joe DeFranco talked about why he doesn't prescribe box jumps for any of his athletes, especially youth ones. And he was saying that he does them, but not like those super high ones where they're basically just flexing their hips, when they're just like reaching for it. He said, well, if something goes wrong and they get hurt, how can I not expect to get sued by their parents if that person's supposed to go to a D1 college to play football and I just got them hurt doing an exercise that I don't even know if it's going to have that much carryover if they can jump an extra 2 inches of their best. So that's another thing. People act like these professional athletes in sports are supposed to be squatting, benching, and deadlifting like they're power lifters. But if that's not going to get them better, but it's also going to increase the risk of injury, then they're not going to do it. And if it would make them a better basketball player or better athlete in general, then they're going to do it because that's their job. The trainers get paid a lot of money to make sure they get to be the best athletes that they can be.
Yeah, Zach Evanesh actually said something similar about those box jumps. Like they don't have to; those boxes don't really have to be as high as we think.
Yeah, you don't need to jump 60 inches or whatever. You just got to put it high enough to the point where you have to give it 100%, or else you're not going to make it.
Yeah, it's more of an effort thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we covered a lot of stuff in today's episode.
Yeah, that was good.
100%. If you got like any finishing thoughts or anything you want to tell the people, I know it's pretty much the same audience on both parts, but
no, yeah, no. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, man. So to people watching, man, everything's gonna be timestamped. Let us know down below what you think. I know we were rambling on about certain stuff. Certain names were mentioned. We know it's all love. And yeah, subscribe to Strength Classroom. I forgot it for a sec. I've been watching it for a long time, man. So
I know it's funny. I don't even know how we started talking to each other, but we've clearly been watching each other since before we started talking to each other.
That's really exercising my memory. I believe it was from. It might have had something to do with neck videos, honestly.
Maybe.
Yeah, For sure it had something to do with neck. If we're really curious, we could go up the IG, but like
That's true.
like,
Yeah.
really long conversation. But
It'll be like a long conversation. Yeah.
yeah. No, honestly, I think it was kind of like what happened with me and Alex, man. Like I'm just like I think I really get along well with this guy, and the universe just did certain things where it's
Yeah.
like you're talking to this person, and that's just how like it unfolded, man.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, man. There's probably some other people watching here that like we're gonna connect with sooner or later. Just
Yeah.
building a community, man. So
Yeah.
anyways, man, appreciate it.
I know. Thank you for having me.
See you guys soon and take care.